It's Friday, September 15th, 2023. Let's start off with our shill segment, as we typically do. Patreon.com/Ozone Nightmare is one avenue of support. You can also go to the show homepage, and you will find on the right-hand side there is a PayPal link. Look for the PayPal logo. That will allow you to donate and support the show through that avenue. You will also see a book icon that will take you to Lando's Amazon author page. You will see a little skull that will take you to my Linktree. And there is a link to the show YouTube channel. And I think that's and the code Ozone, as far as I know, still allows you to get a month free of Libsyn. Is it a month? Hold on, it's on my thing. 2 months, 2 months free if you would like to start a little show of your own on the Libsyn service, which is quite good. We've been with them for almost the entirety of the show. Actually, I think we have been with them for the entirety of the show. So I like them. If you want to try them out, Ozone will get you 2 months free. And there you go. Got through the whole shill segment in one shot.
Booyah.
Yay. It only took 9 seasons and 860 episodes for me to be able to do a smooth intro.
Oh, whatever. I'm still surprised that anybody even wants to support the show.
Me too.
You know, I listen to you on the book show.
Yes.
It's always funny. It's always funny listening to you in other shows because you're so much more
professional.
I'm gonna say I was gonna say domesticated, but yeah.
I mean, I can't swear on that show. You have to understand. The thing is that because now for people who don't know what you're talking about, because that's a paywalled episode on the Twit network as a Club Twit.
Yeah, and I heard it specifically because Joe let me listen to it.
Yes. So if you're a Club Twit member, you can hear me on Stacy's Book Club. That's what it's called. Yeah. And you will hear me again when they do the next one, I think in November, because I seem to be the only person who will go and talk. People are, I guess most people are just afraid, and I don't have that problem. So I immediately am like, yes, I will talk, and I have no problem talking.
You're
but
great. No, you're great, but you are. It's funny listening to you. You're far more controlled.
Well, I have to be because they don't like swearing, which I'm fine with. But I have to. Well, because
actually, you know what? I shouldn't talk. I'm a parent. I spend most of my day not cursing.
Well, okay. Here's the other thing about it is the Twit network is largely focused on technology people. Yeah. So IT people and people interested in technology, and so they often play those episodes at their job, sometimes on speakers. So, understandably, I'm not going to start dropping F-bombs every time. Now, they will swear here and there. Yeah.
But there was a hilarious moment, for those who didn't hear it, when I asked Joe what this show was about.
Right. Which
and there was a brief moment of deer in headlights.
I went into Vapor Lock. Yeah, I went into Vapor Lock because
you were like, you had this moment where you're like, shit, what is it about?
Well, because my normal explanation is for people who are already into our type of stuff. Yeah. And so what I did was, and if you notice, what I had to do was I had to arrange it in my head. That was the lock. So I went, okay.
You're like, what do we do?
Well, no, it wasn't really that. It was I always say it's not about anything, but that's like the worst description. So I said that, and I immediately I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to lead with Lando because Lando's a parent and an author. And that will appeal to people listening to a book club episode anyway, as far as the reviews that you do, as far as comic books and books and movies that you watch with your kids, which is not untrue.
I have a simple answer that I give people.
Sure, what is that?
It's a dissection of culture and society.
Yeah, you know what? That's fine, but it's not going to work. It doesn't work for this type of show. You have to give people the idea of what the actual material is. So I gave them your side.
I know, the problem is that half our show is controlled, which is reviews, right? And half of it is the fact that we can go down a rabbit hole for as long as it needs to be gone down.
and that's why I let off by saying it's an ongoing conversation with my best friend. And you do reviews of things that I don't often watch or read. And then I do the weird, pretentious. What I wanted to say was head up their own ass, but I had to quickly recalibrate and say.
You were close,
I was very close. Head up their own rear end type pretentious art house movies, which is true. And it is true. So
and you can see it because Joe posted it to his Instagram.
Yes, I did, actually. I did post. That's about the only thing I've ever posted on there that actually is of me.
It was very funny.
Yeah. They actually used an image of me on their thumbnail. Where they were talking about
it's a nice show, like
it's great.
It's great. Listening to them talk about books and you talking with them, and it was a nice show. I mean, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen mostly to what do you call it, college lectures and audiobooks. But I was curious once I saw that bit. I was like, I wonder, and then you gave me access to listen to the rest of it, and I was curious about it. So, but I had a weird day. So I went to the New York Tuxedo Ren Faire today.
Okay. Wait. Just so that people understand. It doesn't mean it's a Ren Fair of tuxedos. It's Tuxedo, New York.
No. It's Tuxedo, New York.
Yes.
They have
because the way you said that.
Yeah. They have one of the biggest Renaissance fairs, and have for years now. I've been going since I was a little kid.
By the way, is Ren Fair with an E on the end, or is it just with the R?
I don't know why they put the E at the end, but they do put the E.
Well,
at the end.
Isn't that an old English spelling? Isn't that why?
Yeah, it is. It's the Renaissance Fair.
Well, you've given me the show title now. 5 minutes in, which is the Tuxedo Ren Faire. Go ahead. 6 minutes in.
So I've been going there since I was a kid, like literally a little kid, and I've always loved it. It's always been great. When I was younger, I had to get my parents I had to annoy them enough to bring me because it's one of those things where it's my older brother hated it. It still hates it because it's not cool. So
because there's no shoes.
But no, he was. Remember,
there's no sneakers.
Yet. Yeah, no. Remember, my brother was like a deadhead, and he's what I like to call a true believer. When he jumps onto a fad, he jumps onto that fad completely.
Well, I mean,
so he was
credit for that.
So he was first he was a skater punk, and he was all skater die, and then he was a deadhead, and it was dreadlocks and tie dyes and tapestries, and what's his name, Jerry Garcia is God, right? And then he became a oh man, I don't even know what he no,
that's what it's called.
No, there's a He was.
Well,
he wasn't.
He is a sneakerhead.
He is a sneakerhead now, but he got really into rap music and thought he was ghetto, and then he just totally became that.
Yeah, I guess that would be hip-hop,
threw all
hip-hop,
his
whatever.
and then he threw all his hippie stuff away, and and it was funny is that the way he tries to I guess act like he wasn't that other thing, he always was this thing, you know what I mean?
Oh, so he's trying to disavow.
No, I wasn't
hippiness.
like that. And you're
wow.
Motherfucker. I was you had live Deadhead fucking concerts.
You had every Fish album they ever put out.
Yeah, no, you know what? I will give him credit. He never transitioned over.
Oh, he never went full Fish.
No, he was always the Grateful Dead. But anyway,
so he stuck with the classics. Okay.
Yeah, but he's a sneakerhead now, which is a whole other conversation. So he never wanted to go, but I would have to pester my parents to bring me when I was a little kid because they don't want to fucking go. And when I was younger and I went, it was a very different Ren Fair. It was much smaller, and people were far more aggressive and insulting. It had much more of a carnival, a mean-spirited carnival barker kind of attitude in the beginning. but there was lots of cool shit and crafts and armor and swords and they had like jousting. It was great for a kid. It was great. Now that I'm older and have been going for years, at some point or another, the Renaissance Fair, this Renaissance Fair got bought by a bigger company, and the company basically they were a seasonal thing. They used to come in now and then they bought the actual property and said, "Fuck it, we're gonna put up permanent structures." So now when you go, there's very much like a weird. I mean, in the past like years, it's been like this. It's like a weird town in the woods. Like because they own the property and because they make enough money off of it, they have these permanent structures, and you have the same people who go every year with like lots of cool stuff, and and it's become like it's like a weird thing because the whole family traditions. It's like family traditions. Some family traditions you like force because you want to have a family traditions. Like my wife was like, we're gonna have Saturday movie night, and it was like one of this thing where she like really pushed for that. Whereas like we just always went to this Renaissance Fair, like always, and for years. My wife and I went. I went when I was a kid, and now I'm going with my kids. So it's a weird thing to suddenly realize, oh shit, that even when I lived in Vermont, I would come down and we would go to this Renaissance Fair. So it's a weird kind of like family tradition that crept up. And now it's great because there's all these, permanent buildings so people can really settle in, and you have these people who've been going there for years, and there's like a lot of art. It's become now where there's lots of arts, there's lots of crafts, there's still leather armor and all kinds of things. Everybody gets dressed up. And it's great. And there's still like, once they got bought by this company, the company was like, listen guys, stop being mean. People don't want to buy shit from you when you're a huge asshole to them. And it caught on, and they're all very nice now. So it's great to bring my kids. But the part of this I was going to tell, the weird part of the story is I almost never get dressed up to go to a Renaissance Fair. When I was younger, I tried because I liked leather armor and I liked fantasy shit. When I got older, I was like, you know what? It's not worth the pain in the ass it is. Plus, it's in the summer. Like, this is the end of the summer here. So it was always fucking so hot and humid. But we basically got it in our heads to get dressed up this year. We were originally going to go with some people, and they backed out. And then we were like, you know what? Let's get dressed up. So we had this big pirate theme going. Where and when I say Renaissance Fair, it really is just like a fantasy fair is really what it is. Plus, this was Time Traveler weekend. They had like event weekends, so like there was a ton of Doctor Who's were there. Oh, but man, I had a moment. I saw Marty McFly because it was Time Traveler weekend. There was a guy waiting online for alcohol, and I saw him from like through a crowd, and I was like, holy shit. I was like, that's Marty McFly. And he had the puffy vest and like the jean jacket and like the whole outfit. And I thought maybe I was being crazy, and I turned to my wife, I was like, that's Marty McFly, right? And she's like, oh yeah. And it was so subtle. But I was like, it's 73 degrees and you're wearing a puffy vest. So, and the colors were right. So that was really cool. Again, not the weird part of the story. So I dressed up like a pirate. I thought my costume was quite fun. But this thing kept happening, which is a very weird thing because it has its anchor back in Vermont, which is I was getting tattooed with my tattooist, and a very large tattooed woman came in and exposed herself to us, which tends to happen with tattooing. When someone's like, check out this tattoo, and they'll like, whip out a body part. It's just, it's always strange to me when people expose themselves. But like, there's such a nonchalance about it in kind of the tattooing world, because you're like, oh, that's a really nice tattoo on your boob. But this woman, we were talking to her for a while. She was another client of my tattooist, and she said, I don't want to offend you. She's like, but you have like a sexy Smee vibe going. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah. She's like, you remind me. And here's the thing. I was just sitting there in like a t-shirt. Actually, I think I was shirt off at that point because I was being tattooed. I was like in shorts, and like, that's it. Like, there was no piratey garb on me, nothing. And and I think what it is like I have these little round silver glasses, and I think and I've got like the white kind of vaguely salt and pepper beard, and this woman was like, yeah, she's like, you got a strong like Bob Hoskins as Smee vibe. She's like, and I was like, cool, I'm gonna take that as a compliment, right? Never thought of it again. But today, holy shit, you want to count? Guess how many times I was told that I reminded people of Bob Hoskins as Shmee in Hook.
I'm going to say 10 to 15.
Fucking teen.
Wow, hit it on the high end.
15. Holy shit. The first time I was like,
you do. I can see it immediately.
Man, it was so. And one guy said to me, he goes, "Did you intend that?" I'm like, "No, man, I just dressed up like a pirate." And he goes, "Well," he's like, "Count yourself lucky." He's like, "Some people try really hard to be a named character, and no one knows who they are." He's like, "You just got dressed up, and you're definitely a named character." And I was like, "Okay." It's like, I guess I'll take that. But yeah, it was so funny. People were like, "Did you intend that?" One guy took my wife aside and was like, "Hey man," I was like, "I really love your husband's Shmee cosplay," and she was like, "Oh no, he's just a pirate." He's like, "Really?" Yeah, it was so. At first it was like strange because it kept happening, and then it just became hilarious. Like, and it just became a tally, or like every time somebody would say it, So yes, what's funny is I looked at I didn't really see myself. We're still in the middle of construction here in my house. And so we haven't put any mirrors or anything up, any like full body mirrors. So I didn't actually see myself when I got dressed up until my wife took pictures. And after the fact, I saw myself and I was like, yeah, I guess I could see it. I was like, but I mean, really, you're just saying, well, you saw the pictures.
Yeah.
So do you see it? Is it immediately there?
Oh, yes. Well, okay.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to say this. I didn't immediately think of Smee, but that's because I haven't watched Hook in a while. Had I watched Hook last night or the week before or whatever, I probably would have immediately said, "Man, do you know that you look almost exactly like Bob Hoskins?" Because I just looked up a picture of him, and it's. I mean, I can see. And I mean, look.
But I've been told before that I remind people of Bob Hoskins. So
if you were literally standing next to Bob Hoskins, it would be less of a resemblance. But what it really is it is the glasses, it's the beard, and it's the general shape because
he was very big up top, and then he was little.
Well, and that's the thing is that under layers, you can't tell whether somebody's really muscular or not. You know what I mean? You can't see that under layers. You just see the general stature, and in that way. Yes, you could. In fact, what you should do is have your wife cosplay as Hook, and the two of you should do it for Halloween.
No, she was like a piratey queen lady. It was great.
Well, but I'm saying to get
we never get dressed up.
Yeah, see, that would be the fun end. Because you've got one half of it down. So I mean, honestly, looking like Hook is easy because he doesn't look like anything. He's just giant hair and mustache, or that twirly mustache and a hook. Yeah. So there's no work to that. Whereas you have the physicality down. Hook just needs to be kind of tall and have a hook hand.
But I did see probably one of the coolest things I've seen in a long time. You know the Aztec calendar, that like round plate.
Oh sure. Yeah.
A guy took that idea and made a Star Wars like Aztec calendar. He put it in wood. And it was almost like a cutting board of olive wood, but like it was so neat because it had Darth Vader in this middle, and then he just did all these little designs and like everything. It was like this massive sort of reference to the original Star Wars trilogy, but it was so neat looking, the stuff he did. Like I wanted to take a picture and send it to you, but they hate when you do that.
Sure.
But I really wanted to take a picture of it because I thought you would have found that so neat. Like, it was very clever. But yeah, so I was Shmee for the day.
Oh, that's great.
So yes,
that's fun.
It was amusing. Man, I sweat so much though because it's so damn humid. But that's not what we want to talk about today. You want to talk about games or TV?
You mean which one first?
Which one first?
All right. We can talk about games first. I don't care.
All right. So
because I have movie reviews, so I would say we could go games, TV, movies. I guess.
There you go. So Joe and I are now, when I say balls deep in Baldur's
Deep, you might say.
Yeah, Baldur's Deep in his gate.
Hey.
Yes, we are, and you know what? The sign of a good game.
Yeah.
We sat down to play that other game. What was the other one that we walked away from?
Divinity?
Divinity, yeah, Divinity.
Yeah. Well,
we sat down to play Divinity.
Hold on. We never gave it a real chance, to be fair.
No, I know that, but the thing is, we started playing Divinity, right? And what did we play it for, like 3 days?
Well, we did, and then you had to move.
And then, I had to move, right.
I mean, we got
but the thing is, playing that game felt like a chore. Right? I don't know why, but playing it felt like a chore. Whereas Baldur's Gate, after, you know what, not even, day one, I found it to be more enjoyable, more well thought out, more everything.
All right, so I'll say this about the difference between the openings of the two games, because I actually did think about this at one point. Because they're made by the same people, same developer.
I know, and that's what's it's funny. Baldur's Gate is definitely a revised creation.
Well, I think that I don't think it's revised. I think the difference is that Divinity tried to do a very long tutorial to get you used to the mechanics of this type of game, to the point where I don't think we ever finished the tutorial, and we played for a while.
Really? Wow.
I don't think so. No, I think that opening, because I don't remember ever getting out of that opening burning whatever building, and that was the tutorial. Remember, we never made it that far out. We had to reset once.
We went to that town and we fought everybody.
Well, that's it. But that's what I'm saying, is that's as far as we made it to a wipe, and that's it, and that was all.
Well, it's funny because it started on a boat.
Yeah,
it started on a boat going to that island, and then there's another. I mean, I love that it's kind of a theme of there. It feels like it starts with a boat going down, and then Baldur's Gate, you're on that weird
on a tentacle airship. Yeah. So I think the difference is in Baldur's Gate, I think that they didn't bother to, because we had to look a lot of stuff up just to figure out the mechanics of it. Like I had to watch 7 or 8 different videos to understand how combat worked.
There's been a few things where one of us has picked something up and the other hasn't, and we've been like, oh no, just do this, and the other person's like, oh shit, I didn't know you could do that. And you're like, oh yeah.
Right. So I think with Baldur's Gate, they were basically like, okay, here's the opening, and now you're on your own, and you have to figure it out. Where, because that the tutorial, which is really the ship crashing, so that's the tutorial. That's really only as long as it is because of the cinematics. Otherwise, it's maybe 20 minutes of gameplay, maybe. Yeah. For you to go through all the options and have a fight, blah blah blah. But the cinematics are twice as long, I would say. It's at least half of that opening. Yeah. Whereas Divinity was less of a cinematic, but more of a, here's what you have to do. Here's how you pick it up. Here's how you target. Here's how you do this. Here's how you select. And it just goes on and on and on and on, which is important. But I think with Baldur's Gate, they went, well, nobody who doesn't know this will play this, so screw it. And we just fumble through it.
Well, and maybe after I finish playing Baldur's Gate 3, I will want to go back and try Divinity.
I don't think so, because everything I read said that Baldur's Gate 3 did fix a lot of problems that Divinity had.
Oh, okay.
So they said this is a more polished version of that. So I don't think we ever ran into what other people are complaining about.
Okay.
But we would have. So honestly, I would probably just want to play something else for a while, come back to this, and do a different run. And see if we can do it.
Up front, Baldur's Gate 3 is a wonderfully polished, good-looking game. One thing is that it does not suffer fools. I told Joe, I feel like this game was designed by aliens to psychologically test humans. Because it is very easy to find yourself in a moral situation where you do something and you're like, wait a minute, I'm not that kind of monster. But you almost get painted into a corner, right? Where you're trying to do the right thing, and then all of a sudden it becomes no, now you have to kill everybody.
And people will see, I'm pretty sure I've recorded at least some of those moments, like the one where we accidentally started a fight to save the woman I hate, Lazel or whatever her name is.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Yeah, and here's the thing. I was talking to my wife about that decision, because my thing was, it's not that I wanted her on so she was one of the people who was on. All of us get infected essentially by a brain virus. It's a worm, right? Or and she's one of the people
tadpole.
The tadpole. We fight with her. She fights with us on the ship. So Joe and I always try to...
whoa. Let's be clear. She fights with us after threatening to run us through on first meet.
Because she didn't realize that we were also infected.
Yeah, I just love the fact that she's got the same worm, yet somehow we're the assholes of the group.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I didn't like this woman from sight.
Let's be clear. She is an asshole, and neither of us has played with her. But the idea is because she is one of the companions you can take with you.
I tell you now, I will never play with her.
I know. But
Meaning
my idea...
you can have her on your little mini team. She will never be on my little team.
Morally, because we try to play these games by our actual morals, was that if somebody fought with me and then I found them in a cage, I would try to say, okay, you fought with me. I'm going to help you out of this cage, and then we're done.
Okay,
and then I
Quick
was
qualifier.
done.
Quick qualifier. I would not have not saved her. I don't want anyone to die who is not overtly evil. I just don't want to sit there and have a drink with her.
No,
but I'm not going to let someone burn her alive in front of me. No.
And every time I've gone to talk to her, she's been a huge bitch. So, yeah. And we've kind of, what's funny is we've kind of settled on other characters and classes. And that's the thing is the game does allow you to really kind of tailor your play. Which is nice.
You can run the worst team ever if you want. It will let you have a team of all, I don't know, socially awkward bards that just go around and sing songs and get slaughtered over and over. You can do it.
You can reclass all the characters, all the companions.
Yeah.
And make them whatever you want. So that's kind of amusing. And I mean, I originally wanted to. Luckily for me, I didn't have to go to. I reclassed once. I went in as a fighter. Eldritch Knight, and then once I realized that we had so much magic on our team, I was going to try to be a barbarian, didn't like it, and stuck with the fighter, and just went for the different subclass, which is less magic-y and more basically like fight-oriented.
Tanky.
So,
tanky.
Yeah, more tanky. There you go. I do love that all our references to games like this, it always goes back to World of Warcraft.
Well, let's be fair though. World of Warcraft is from D&D.
Goes back
so actually,
to the Dragons,
this is the true source.
Well, there's a very funny moment in the game where I had to explain how the whole roll system works to Joe, because he didn't understand that when you get a really bad roll, it's not just that you miss; it's that it like actually becomes. To my knowledge, having played D&D when I was younger with a few people and having read the books, when you get, let's say you get I think you had a roll of like 12, right? Let's say it was 12 roll, right? If you get a 12 and you're dead on, you do it adequately, right? If you get a 20, then you do it amazingly, right? If you get a 10, you fail it, but you just barely fail it, right? But if you get like a 1, then like you fail it so bad that you fucking cut your own dick off. Like it's that kind of failure. And I think to some degree the game kind of handles it that way, where if you do really bad, the game almost kind of slaps you in the face a little bit as it tells you to fuck off.
Well, it does. It says critical miss.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost like you not only missed, you missed immensely.
You missed amazingly. Yeah.
Spectacular failure, sir.
So despite the fact that we have been killed off repeatedly because there are big fights that we have to figure out the strategy for, and like we're still kind of lost, wandering around, figuring what the fuck's going on. It is immensely enjoyable. It is Wasteland level enjoyable, and we really liked Wasteland.
Listen,
we liked Wasteland so much we tried to get through it twice.
We failed on a fight that we tried in the last few days. That we tried it one way, and I said, let's try it in reverse. Right? Yeah. I said, and that was, Lando started off looking things up, and I said, I'm not looking anything up. I don't want to know anything outside of very, very minor stuff, but I'm not doing any of this. I want to know where this, I don't want to know that. I want to play it blind.
My character is communing with the gods, getting data.
But that's fine. So this was not something I read as a strategy. We had failed miserably, and I said, let's, instead of trying, because our idea was...
You noticed they were all level 1s. You're like the main guy...
You picked up on that, and you said, these are all low levels.
Yeah,
that's why the reason you kill. And you said, let's kill the main guy and focus on him, because I had read that the strategy is kill the primary enemy first. Or focus on one enemy.
Yeah.
And I think logically we looked at the strongest guy in the room.
We were like, let's kill him.
And let's kill him. But we kept failing and failing.
Yeah,
and I mean, at times we didn't even get close to anything.
Because he would one-shot like 2 of us in one turn.
Right.
There's 4 members of your team, and you lose half the team in a second.
Well, plus if the healer goes down, you're almost always screwed. I mean, that's just that's pretty much any game like this. Is the healer goes down.
And the problem is that we were in the middle of, were they goblins or trolls? What are those fuckers?
Goblins.
We're in the middle of a goblin city. And we've just started a fight with one of their religious leaders. So we're kind of sitting there going, we need to kill this guy, and we need to do it fast enough that they don't alert the rest of the city.
Correct.
So it's already like a questionable action.
Yes.
And we tried so we tried the different technique of killing all the underlings first.
Which worked.
Started working.
Well, no.
Hold on.
It did work.
It did work.
Except it spread past the room.
But
which we didn't realize.
but it got ridiculous is what it happened. Because at one point everyone was
recorded it all, and it's going to go up.
One person, everyone was dead except for Joe, who was a hunter.
I was down to, no exaggeration, 1 hit point.
And he had a decision of whether to jump into a ditch, essentially.
A pit with a giant spider.
With a giant spider, or stay up top with the guy. And I was like, dude, jump down. Maybe the spider
That was your idea. Well, he didn't. I had to charm him, which worked.
Yeah, and that kept the spider off Joe long enough.
10 turns, I think, or something
Joe
like that.
actually was capable of long shot killing this boss character. And the spider.
And the reason is, and I don't know if you noticed this or if it was just like desperation.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that the main guy had no range attack. He had, except to, no exaggeration, throw stones at you, which I think was more effective in trying to knock you off a high point, which, in fairness, that's where I was at first. Yeah. Because I'm better from up, because I'm a ranged character. So I was just nitpicking. I was basically just throwing thumbtacks at him from a basement. And eventually he died. The problem was then everybody else in the camp was alerted. Now, I'm still not sure, as we record this, I may look this particular element up, because this is just one detail. If that is a guarantee alert of everybody else, or if those guys getting knocked into the pit alerted them. Because I don't know, because nobody showed up until the very end outside the room, and I'm wondering if it is possible to do it.
And if you see the video, it's a very small victory where we're like, yes, you killed him, and then all of a sudden it's like pop, 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 pop.
No. The title of the video will be The Hollowest of Victories. I already have the title for that video in my head. I don't know when it'll go up exactly, but I know what the title is, and it will go up in its entirety, because I was thrilled when he went down. Even though we lost, I said, nope, that's still, I celebrate it. It worked. The reverse worked. Only because I don't think you were too keen on the idea. I think your idea was we can't win, we have to leave. And I'm like, let's just try it in reverse.
No. See, with games like this, my whole thing is try once, try twice. Okay, go do something else. Because you're obviously, if you need to depend on luck to win a fight, then you're not, it's like, go get stronger. And you had said to me that in this game, there's only 10 levels.
12.
So
12 levels.
12 levels. So there's such a gap between level powers, right?
There is.
And this guy's a level 4, and we're all level 3s, and he is a boss character, so he's already fucking pretty strong. So my mindset was just, you know what? We tried to fight him a couple times, it didn't work, and I look at kind of like enjoyment, where I'm kind of like, you know what? Let's go do some of the stuff that we can succeed at, level up, come back, and ruin this guy, right? And we will. I mean, because in the end, we left the city, we did. Yeah. But the thing is, like, we left the city after trying, was it 3 times?
Well, when that last reverse fight failed, that's when we left. Because at that point, what I'm not sure about is if that fight can be won. Because we did win the fight. Now, if the rest of the camp hadn't alerted, we won. The thing is, I don't know if the triggering of the rest of the camp is inevitable or is avoidable. If it is, I want to try it. But if it's not, then there is no point, because we cannot win against the whole camp. It was the luckiest of luck that got us through that, because for me to survive, the spider missed me multiple times.
Talking to you now, I have a theory about how we can do it now. Actually,
all right, well, hey,
because you're right. That guy has no range, and everybody else is level 1. And there's a almost like a scaffolding that goes above the whole room. It's like a level 3.
Sure.
And if you go up there and you destroy the ladders so they can't get up to you, you could just basically destroy everybody below you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yes, I do like that Joe and I text each other back. You know, it's a good game when Joe and I texting each other back and forth like throughout the day. Like, hey, I was thinking da 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 da. You know, so like there's like there's an excitement, there's a strategy, there's a planning. So yes, Baldur's Gate 3 so far is very enjoyable. It deserves all the good rep I think it's getting.
I agree. I mean, we're having a blast with it. So as long as the game really does feel like it allows you to try to figure out a solution.
Yeah.
And I'm okay failing if I can keep trying different things, which so far.
And it lets you try different things.
And the other approach worked up to a point.
Yeah.
And honestly, if we gotten a couple of lucky breaks and maybe one character hadn't gone down, we might have had and maybe we can kill him fast enough to not have everybody else
not alert everybody else.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm going to look up whether he is killable without alerting the whole camp. If that's possible
right now.
Yeah, it is actually alerting. Here I am.
So yeah, I wanted to mention Baldur's Gate 3 because I like to mention when we have a good co-op game, and so far you're gonna find all sorts of shit. Is what you're gonna find.
Yeah, you know what? It is possible.
Yeah, I figured it is. Yeah, I you know what? I want to try the latter thing. We'll get there. We'll get there later. But now I switch gears, and I have not a full movie review. I have a very tiny movie review because I was surprised by something. But I'll do the shows first because we're gonna slip into movies, right? But I watched the first episode of 2 series, and I was kind of surprised. So I watched the first episode of Ashoka. I guess I was just calling it Ashoka, right?
Sure. I call it Ahsoka, but I don't care.
Ahsoka? I don't know.
Who cares?
Tell
the
me
new
what
Star
to call
Wars
it.
show.
Yeah, I know the new Star Wars.
I believe it's Ahsoka,
Ahsoka?
whatever. Yeah.
Ahsoka Tano. There you go. So Ahsoka. So I watched the first episode of the Ahsoka show.
Pronounce.
And I also watched the first episode of the last Henry Cavill season of The Witcher, so The Witcher season 3, right?
Sure.
So it was kind of an interesting comparison because, listen, at the end of the day, Star Wars is fantasy in space, right? And Witcher is fantasy on the ground, right?
Sure.
So in there, like they have that the what are you sending me?
That's how to pronounce it. You never use the site where it tells you how to pronounce weird names?
Ahsoka. There you go.
You got to hit the little play button. It'll tell you.
Okay,
it plays it. It goes, Ahsoka. Ahsoka.
Ahsoka.
Like a super Ahsoka. You know,
and
like a Mario super
And it almost sounds like sugar in Spanish. Azúcar.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So I watched both these episodes, and I was actually quite entertained. I mean, I have a different mindset of late with TV, because I think a lot of people get into television and get more into it, I think, than it deserves. Like I look at TV and I'm like, it's entertainment. It's something I watch when I'm kind of done with the day, right? But I'd rather be doing a lot of other things, right? And I think a lot of people get like overly dedicated. Like this is the whole, people that were like, Marvel makes the best movies ever, and now they're like, I'm over Marvel. Marvel sucks, and you're like, well, it doesn't. There can be a middle ground where you're like, listen, Marvel made some movies that were entertaining. Now they still make some movies that are entertaining. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not that invested to get angry about it. And I think the reason I've learned that lesson is because of the prequels. Because I was really invested in the prequels because I was younger. And I was let down. And I was very angry about it for years.
And that's my response to people who say that modern Star Wars somehow sucks because of, Kathleen Kennedy. I go, George Lucas did pretty good job on screwing up himself. So
but then I kind of got over it. I understood the bigger point of view, how things work, and I understand how easy it is to fuck shit up, right? That said, I have enjoyed a lot of the new Star Wars. I do enjoy Mandalorian. I know that you're not thrilled with the helmet, but I enjoy a lot of the Mandalorian. I wasn't too fond of season 3 of Mandalorian. Season 3? Yeah, season 3. Because I felt like they were really trying to, I don't know. There's cool stuff in there, but there was other stuff that I was like, I wasn't thrilled with. But it's still fun. I still like those characters, and I'm sad that what's her name got herself removed from the show for not being able to.
Yeah, whatever her name
up.
is. I don't even remember.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But the Ahsoka show, I never watched the animated series, so like I didn't have that angle. The only I know of the character, I've read about the character, I've seen clips of the character, and I love Rosario Dawson. So I was like, "Ooh, Rosario Dawson's great," and they kind of play her. They play her almost like I don't want to say lone wolf and cub, but it's almost she does
like
play it. Yeah, well, she does play it very much like a Ronin samurai, who is like a haunted Ronin samurai. You know what I mean?
Sure.
She does not appear to have any kind of love interest. She appears to be completely focused on these things that she's doing, and in that respect, there's something very alien about her, because she's an alien. She's not human.
I was going to say she is an alien, though, isn't she?
Yeah, and she does not seem to be caught up with the things that other characters are caught up with. You know what I mean? Like I said, I didn't watch the show, the animated series, so I don't know if she was portrayed differently there. But Rosario Dawson handles her like a Ronin samurai who's made some mistakes, right? And seems a bit haunted by it. She's very effective. She works kind of best on her own with minimal support to the way she feels about it. And she's fierce. I mean, she's not someone to fuck with easily. They set that up right away in the show, and I love the fighting. I mean, I guess that's kind of awful in that respect, but I love sword fighting, and lightsaber fighting is a kind of sword fighting. I love the way that they handled her when she showed up in The Mandalorian, and I love the way she is here. Did she have the one short lightsaber in the Mandalorian? I don't remember her having one short one.
I don't remember. I don't remember much of The Mandalorian.
So she's got the long one and the short one, which is very traditional. I like that a lot. And they're having a lot of fun with the action sequences. And so I don't know where the show's going. But for a first episode, I found it really entertaining. She's trying to find out where this map is that may lead to Thrawn.
Oh, Star Wars maps. That's something everybody loves.
Yeah, I know. Yes, but at the end of it is Thrawn, and possibly at the end is the Jedi character from the animated series. What was his name?
Ezra.
Yeah, Ezra. I was never that in love with Ezra as a character, but apparently a lot of people liked him. And they have cast him. I think that's the other key thing is they did cast somebody as Ezra. Like Ezra shows up in an like a holo thing, a holo file. So they have cast the character, which leads me to believe that maybe at some point he is going to show up. It's amusing how many Jedi there really still are in the galaxy. And Luke is walking around going, "I'm the last Jedi." Really what you're saying is you're the last religious zealot of Jediism. But there's plenty of Force users around. And that's what Disney Star Wars is playing with. And so far the villains seem to be the woman that Ashoka Tano kicked the shit out of in the Mandalorian episode, who worked with Thrawn, and then she has apparently hired a mercenary who is a former Jedi who left the Order, and his Padawan. And now I don't know if they're Sith, but they are definitely mercenaries. And I like it's the whole. If it was just Ahsoka versus Mandalorians or any non-Force user, you always sit there and go, well, she's got the Force. She's always gonna have a magic trick because she's got, she's a sword magician. She's a sword wizard. But when you're up against other sword wizards, especially aggressive ones, then it's good because it makes it, it raises the stakes. And so Ahsoka finds this map ball, which very much looks like the ball that
Phantasm ball?
The Star-Lord finds in Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one.
Would have been better if it was Phantasm.
I know. Well, yeah.
Right.
Oh, and David Tennant does the voice of the robot.
Yes, that is an appeal. I must
That
admit.
is fantastic. When I realized that was him, I was like, yes. I was like, it's great to have him around. David Tennant does make everything better, even though he's in it minimally. But she's very good, and she finds the ball, and she realizes she can't decode it. At which point, she starts essentially bringing it to people from the show Star Wars Rogue. Is it Rogue or Rogues? Can't remember.
I don't know. Never watched
Either
them.
way, yeah. Yeah, the thing, I never watched them, so in that respect, this is kind of new to me.
Rebels,
but
Rogues, Resistors, whatever.
But I do like the characters. I also think it's very funny that Ewan McGregor's wife plays one of the main characters of the show. The other, for lack of knowledge, one of the other tentacle heads, because that's essentially what they are, right? Well, do you remember what that species is called? The tentacle heads.
Well, not the Ahsoka ones. I know the other ones are the Twi'leks.
I think she's
the
a Twi'lek.
The ones that dance in Jabba's palace are Twi'leks. I know that.
Yeah, I think she's a
Which
Twi'lek.
is also what his, what's his face? Bib Fortuna is a Twi'lek as well.
Yeah, she's.
Or no, maybe he isn't. Maybe he isn't.
You know what? I don't know. She's got a tentacle head.
No,
Yes,
I'd like to know if I'm right about that.
Yeah.
He is. Yes, the Twi'lek
Okay,
Major
there you go.
Domo. What a great word, Major Domo. I love that word. Anyway, go on.
So Ewan McGregor's wife also plays is a character in the
Twi'lek.
show.
I believe it's Twi'lek.
And it's very funny because Ewan McGregor's uncle was who was he in the original Star Wars? He's one of the pilots that these.
Oh, you mean Wedge Antilles?
Yeah.
His
So
uncle.
it's very
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
'Cause
I was going to say
Ewan
it's all
McGregor's-
incestuous in Star Wars.
Yeah,
really
it is. Ewan McGregor's uncle was Wedge Antilles. He's Obi-Wan Kenobi. His wife is this character, whose name I can't remember, but she's very good. So and I think Ewan McGregor's kids got into the show as well, or something like that. So it's just amusing to me, all that. But yeah, so she brings it to one of these people from Star Wars Rogue, who says you should bring it to the character that was once her Padawan, and then I guess she left, so she never completed her training. So she's a Mandalorian that has some Jedi training. Which, you know what, I don't think you should call it Jedi training. If you're not a Jedi anymore, it really is just teaching somebody force combat, isn't it? Think about it.
Yeah.
Let's change the terms.
Yeah.
Let's change the terms. Let's call the Jedis Christians. So you're a Christian warrior. Then you give up on the beliefs and you're just a warrior. But then you take an apprentice. Well, you couldn't call your apprentice a Christian warrior because you're not a Christian anymore. That's not what you believe in. You're just a warrior. So calling her like a Jedi apprentice, it makes no sense. She's just I don't know if the term Padawan just means apprentice or is it Jedi apprentice?
Oh, you mean is it just a language word?
Is it Is it just a Star Wars term for an apprentice?
Yeah, I know what you mean. What is a Padawan? Here it is. An apprentice. Hold on. Jeez. Can you just give me a definition, you assholes? I don't need a whole. Here we go.
Oh, it's the power of myth.
No, it looks like it is specifically a Jedi thing.
Yes, and that's
it's
where
the
I have an issue
Jedi's
with it.
version of apprentice.
Yeah, and that's where I have an issue with it because she's not a Jedi anymore, and that's the funny line that this show walks, which is that Ahsoka is not a Jedi. She walked away from that, and yet maybe it's just that she can't get out of her system because she still behaves. Remember I said the whole thing. She has no love interest.
I will say though,
yeah.
you can be a priest of a different order, so perhaps it's used that way. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. So.
But I know what you mean, and it probably would be better if they had just said apprentice as opposed to Padawan.
Yeah, so she goes to this Mandalorian character to ask for help with this device. They have bad blood, but the character says she'll help her. She takes the ball map to kind of analyze it, at which point she gets attacked by these mercenaries who also have, force powers and lightsabers. And then actually, I thought it was a really good sequence because you have the apprentice of this mercenary fighting the former apprentice of Ahsoka. And it's actually a really kind of tense scene because you're like, I don't know who's going to win. I think that the mercenary's apprentice is better. And Ahsoka realizes what's going on and jumps in her ship and she's trying to get there in time. And I was like, you know what? I was like, this is a lot of fun. And it doesn't, it doesn't feel like traditional Star Wars. It's directed by what's his name? The guy who basically did all the animated series. Because Favreau didn't direct this.
Dave Filoni.
It was Filoni. Yeah, Filoni directed this, and it's neat because
it's a Filonious production.
I liked when Filoni was left with a huge effort where he had to flesh out this world, because it's easy to do a movie because you're just showing a narrow lens of a universe, right? Whereas with a show, now you've got hours of television, right? You got to start showing more of that world because there's more story going on. So Filoni has always been really good at fleshing out the Star Wars universe. So in this one, he kind of had me. Was it Clancy Brown shows up as a was it governor or a senator?
Sure.
But I always like to see Clancy Brown.
I do too. I just don't know if it matters what his title is.
No, it doesn't really matter, right? But it doesn't feel like Mandalorian necessarily. It doesn't feel like Star Wars. It feels like its own thing, and so far it's enjoyable. Now maybe if I'd watched the animated series, I'll be like, this is just like the fucking animated series live action. But I didn't. So for me, this is new and this is different, and I enjoy it. Rosario Dawson is excellent, and I mean everybody there is excellent. Filoni knows how to direct Star Wars, and I've watched an episode and I'm curious to get more. But that doesn't mean it's going to work. That doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. I did read that there's a lot of hoopla about all this map shit, and then they apparently dropped that in episode 3 or something like that and kind of veer off in another direction. So I'll be curious to see how the storytelling holds up. But so far, for a first episode, I'm interested. I'm hooked in. I like everybody involved, and they've done a good job, right? Now, I'd love to then turn around and tell you how awful Witcher was, but honestly, Witcher was really great too.
I've only read good things about Witcher.
Yeah, so the first season of Witcher I had a problem with because I didn't understand that there was huge time gaps involved, and I wish that they had done. I think this is my original review for Witcher. I wish there'd been something kind of cluing me in that there was huge gaps of time going on, because I did not get it that everybody was kind of on a different timeline. And then once I did, I was like, oh, this makes so much more sense. It's great. I love it. But I had to. It's very Baldur's Gate, right? Figure it out yourself. And I respect that after the fact. But when you don't know what's going on, and you're kind of sitting there going, yeah, throw me a bone here. And I thought season 2 was interesting. I don't think it was good. I had good parts and bad parts, but I always like Henry Cavill. I mean, I say what you will, Henry Cavill is always good in what he is. I didn't like Man of Steel, but I like Henry Cavill. You know what I mean? And after you told me that he's apparently been tapped to be the Highlander in their whole idea to reboot Highlander, I like him even more, because watching him and his swordplay, he is one of those actors out there who does very good swordplay, and he does not let down, because in this season, I mean, the Witcher is one of these series that when there's a sword fight, I laugh my ass off. I laugh my ass off because it's very well thought out. It's very well choreographed. There is a fantastic greedy ballet to it, and people get arms and legs cut off left and right. There was a sequence there where the Witchers had gone through a portal to fight a wizard, and a bunch of elves show up, and there's elves versus dwarves, and they're trying to take the Witcher's kind of adopted daughter, and there's the wizard characters holding the gate open, and the elves look like they're gonna kick the shit out of the dwarves and take the girl, at which point the Witcher, realizing he needs to get back, he does this great thing. He breaks the wizard's hands. He can't kill him. He doesn't have time, but he just breaks his hands and runs back through the gate. And I'm like, I love stuff like that. That little, it's very sort of, Witcher feels like, oh god, what's the Keanu Reeves series with the hitman?
Oh, John Wick.
it's very John Wick in that respect. It's like fantasy John Wick. And the second, and The Witcher is John Wick. So The Witcher comes back through the gate, and I turned to my wife, and I just said, "Oh, he looks pissed. Those fucking elves are done." And he has this fabulous fight sequence where he's just chopping elves down left and right. At one point he cuts this elf's arms off, and the blood splatters across the screen, and I just laughed my ass off because it's just so violent. It's just over the top fantasy violence, and it's just well done. It's well done for my amusement. So I enjoyed it thoroughly. It was a nice montage of an episode where basically at the end of season 2, they've kind of put all the main people together. So you have the wizard character, you have the Witcher, and you've got the adopted girl has elven blood and may be like, the most important magic user in the land. But they've kind of formed this family unit. So the first part of the episode is just a montage of them essentially trying to stay away from everybody and just kind of have a life together. And the wizard's attempt to get the Witcher to trust her again because she betrayed him in the second season. And it's wonderfully done. It brings you back into the series. It gives you a chance to spend time with these characters, which is one of the biggest problems with movies, is that in movies you're moving so quick you don't really have a chance to just be with characters and get a sense of them. Whereas with this, the whole beginning of the episode is this montage. You spend time with these characters, you see how they react, and then you quickly realize that, or at least the Witcher realizes that everybody's after this girl and they need to do something about it. And so the conclusion of the episode is that she's going one direction with the wizard to be taught how to use her powers, and the Witcher's going in a different direction to try to kill the wizard that is the evil wizard that is trying to kill his adopted daughter or abduct her. I am worried it's getting a bit Games of Thrones-y or Game of Thrones-y. I understand why everybody leans towards that, because to date, Game of Thrones is the most successful fantasy series that's ever been on TV. Am I right?
I have no idea, but sure. It probably is. I don't know.
Well, can you think of another fantasy series?
It depends on what you define as a fantasy series, but not off the top
like
of my
sword
head.
Sword and sorcery.
I
can't think of another sword and sorcery series that's
I don't
as
like the
successful
genre
as.
that much. Well, let's see.
I know it's not your thing.
So it's like even if I knew of one, I probably never watched it.
But what's
Fantasy
amusing
television.
to me is that like so much. I've really started to realize that so much of Star Wars is just space, sword, and sorcery.
Well, okay, it's all speculative, whatever. It's just flavors. Let's see. I'm looking through a list, and so
the
far,
space flavor of wizards.
Yeah, I mean that's all it is.
Oh
wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, are we talking international? Because Japan defines Kamen Rider as fantasy. Therefore, it's probably beaten by
really.
It does.
That's funny.
Yeah, along with like Naruto is considered. I guess Naruto is fantasy. It's magic. So yeah, see, this is what I mean about,
are these animated or live action?
Angel is considered fantasy, which it is.
Angel the Vampire series.
Yeah, Angel the Vampire series.
Yeah, see, and I'm talking about like sword and sorcery.
Well, that's the trick, is trying to figure out what
sword, and sorcery.
Some of these I don't know what the. Let's see.
Yeah.
Wait. What was that? Hold on. No, it probably is. I mean,
either
it probably is, because I can't see anything else I can think of that's
most
bigger.
people know Game of Thrones, and Game of Thrones up until its last season, which was a bit forced, because they got ahead of the books. People love that show. It was a huge hit for HBO. Everybody knows it, right? So it makes sense that other shows would lean towards it. I know that Henry Cavill left the show because they were sick of him wanting to stay closer to the books, and he was sick of them, right? So I do worry, because I like Henry Cavill and I like the way the first 2 seasons went. So I do worry that the show is going to go off in a different direction. It's not going to be as good. And I really like Henry Cavill as the Witcher. Like, I have nothing against what's his name? Is it Liam? I have nothing against Liam Hemsworth.
Whoever the guy is replacing him, sure.
Oh, it's Liam Hemsworth. It's
Sure.
the younger Thor. Uh,
Yeah. Okay.
He's a perfectly good actor, but it's one of those things. Is he going to try and create his own version of The Witcher? Is he really going to be trying to play The Witcher as because this is the problem with bringing somebody in? Is he going to do his Witcher, or is he going to have to mimic the Witcher that Henry Cavill created, which in itself which is a different creation, because most people know The Witcher from the game series, right? I mean, that guy was, for many people, the guy who voiced him was The Witcher for hours upon hours of their life, because it was a game, right?
Well, he is taking over the same named role, so I guess he's going to try to do something.
So when they decided to do the show, I remember reading about this. Henry Cavill really loved the game, and he really loved the books, and he wanted to do his own version, but he wanted to kind of also keep, he didn't want to just, change it completely. But he was of the understanding that things that work in the game won't necessarily work on screen. So his Witcher is very different. His Witcher is much quieter. He's less funny. And many people will point out that his Witcher has made an art of grunting, which I actually really like. If there's anything, one of the things I love the most about the Witcher series is the way that the word fuck can be carried with so many inflections. Like, the way the Witcher says it is so great. And the Witcher gets his ass kicked a lot. I love that. For a series about what is essentially like a super monster assassin, he gets the shit kicked out of him. I mean, he always bounces back and he fucks everybody up, but he gets the shit kicked out of him. So I don't know if Liam Hemsworth is going to be allowed to come in and do his own version of it, nor do I know if I really want him to.
Well, I'll say this, and this may just be marketing bullshit, but you never know. Cavill has full support of it, and Hemsworth has acknowledged that I have not seen anything. I've just been looking in background of his statements. Nothing of him says, I intend to make this character my own. He's saying, I'm going to step into the very big shoes, which makes me think they're just going to keep doing it the same way.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, like, Liam Hemsworth is not a bad actor, And
I think he'll probably be doing similar things.
I think they need to beard him. This is going to sound so weird. So you and I...
Well, they could. I mean, the game, one of the big things of the game was that you could grow a beard, so why not?
Well, here's a segue for you. So Joe and I the other day were talking about growing old, which says how long we've been doing this fucking podcast. And we were both talking about things that we miss from our youth, things that if we could get back, right? And it wasn't, and mostly it was basic stuff. It wasn't like my virility, In Joe's case, what was it? You wish you had your. Do you remember?
No, what did I say? I forgot.
You said you wish you had your hair from when.
My hair. Yeah, I wish my hairline was where it was.
Yeah, you wish you had your hairline from when you were 18, right? And I said, I wish I had my beard color from when I was younger. Because when I was younger, I never had a black beard. My beard, because when I was a kid, I had very colorful. I had like auburn hair, and then it went black. But when my beard came in, it was like it had blonde hairs and red hairs and black hairs, and it was like this. It was very speckled. I loved it. It was one of the more colorful parts of me. And then life happened and it all went white, and now I have this very white kind of salt and peppery beard. And after I spoke to you when we had this conversation, one of the things that I thought about it a lot, and one of the things that made me kind of let it go, was that I actually really like the way the Witcher looks with a white beard. Like, it's a neat look on him. Now, granted, he also has beautiful hair, beautiful long white hair. So maybe if I had beautiful long white hair to go with it. But I have an even worse hairline than you, which is why I just shave it all off. If you're gonna take some of it, nature, just take the rest. So, seeing The Witcher with this white beard made me kind of more like, you know what? It looks pretty cool. And when they said that Liam Hemsworth was going to do it, I was like, man, he's one of those actors who has a bit of a baby face. And I was like, man, I think he needs the beard, because there's just nothing gritty about Liam Hemsworth. Like, he could be jacked and he could do the role, but like, it's the whole, some actors just have.
No, I get it. I know what you mean.
So I hope they beard him. But either way, the first episode of the season 3 of Witcher was a delight to watch. I enjoyed it a lot. And it's funny because I watched these two different shows. I mean, you know, because I finished Picard, and we finished some other series that we were watching, and we needed to start new series. And so, Ahsoka and Witcher, both great openings. I'm excited to see the next episode. I don't know if it'll hold up, but it is nice when the first episode makes a positive. It's a positive opening, right?
Sure.
Now, to switch topics and to go into one that I don't know if you're going to agree with, but I want you to go into it with an open mind, because I was surprised. I have now watched most of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, right? And I don't know why people hate this movie. I have actually found myself really enjoying this movie for just how weird. There are moments where I was watching this movie thinking to myself, man, I was like, there's some shit here that I would have done. It gets really weird. And I like, you know, like when they did Guardians of the Galaxy, we talked about how if they got too weird, would people go with it? Like, this movie gets really fucking weird. I mean, you've got a villain who essentially was banished by other villains, other versions of himself, to the. I mean, you know what? Honestly, they should just call it the Underverse. But whatever, the quantum realm. I'd be happier if they called it the Underverse. Anyway, who's been banished to the quantum realm, right? And there is this incredible golden age of sci-fi feel to what they have done to the quantum realm. The quantum realm is like, it's like Burroughs' Mars. You know, it's that kind of, it doesn't make any fucking sense vision of space that they had in the golden age. It's like the jungles of Venus type approach, you know, when they didn't know enough about science, and they thought that every planet had, you know, wildlife and had a different kind of like, was like Earth but different, you know. There's an incredible golden age of sci-fi feel to it for me, and it immediately removes itself from the MCU. You know, the very beginning of it is they basically set up for everybody, hey, look, Ant-Man, everybody knows him now because he helped the Avengers and yada yada, and Ant-Man wrote a book, and he's kind of, I don't know if he's retired, but he's kind of taking it easy right now. And his daughter, essentially, who is very smart, her and Hank Pym make a sort of satellite to look in on the quantum realm, and when they don't realize it's putting a signal down there, and that signal then gets used to suck them all down. That's it. The second they get sucked down there, they're in the quantum realm, and the rest of the MCU is fucking out of there. One of the only things that really bugs me about the movie is that, why does everybody keep shitting on Ant-Man? It's kind of amusing to me. Like, his daughter shits on him a little bit. His wife kind of, like, everybody kind of treats him like he's the dumbest guy. Like, he's the most useless guy in the room, right? But it's like, I get that, but we're 2 Ant-Man movies and, you know, Endgame and Infinity War. Well, he wasn't in Infinity War. We're Endgame, where Ant-Man has proven that he's really fucking useful, and he's dependable, and he's there to help. And yet he still gets treated. So that was one of the things I didn't like about the movie, that respect. But man, it is so like a weird golden age sci-fi story where a character is sucked into another world that is bizarre and crazy, and he's put in the and he's put in the middle of a situation where he can help. Princess of Mars. Now, I know that people get sick of that because, I mean, they also look, what do they call that? The white savior, right? Isn't that the white savior thing?
Sure. It depends on what you're talking about, but, well, no, I think white savior is specifically if it's a white person saving a black person.
Okay.
But that wouldn't apply for
way,
Ant-Man and the Wasp, no.
Yeah, so
I think everybody in it is white except for Kang, right?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
yes, but I mean, everybody is fucking weird. I mean, it's a whole sub
Well,
universe
but what I'm
of
saying is,
weird creatures.
I don't
Yeah.
think this would apply for that. I believe
Okay.
the
Yeah. So,
lightsaber thing
but
is specific. But
it's a very sort of Princess of Mars idea. Where this guy gets sucked into another world and realizes that he can help people and gets caught up in the story and the revolution. And all Kang wants is to basically get the power source for his ship so he can continue traveling universes. And man, that guy, the guy who plays Kang, I don't know if
for now,
Marvel's I don't know if Marvel's going to use him anymore because there's all that stuff that went on with him, and I get it. But man, he is good. Like as an actor, he is very good. There's a moment in this, so they didn't tell you any of Michelle Pfeiffer's backstory, right? Like when she gets pulled out, you never really hear much about what the hell she was up to in the quantum realm. She was very hush about it. And this movie takes this idea of, well, the reason she was hush about it was because a lot of shit went on. That basically, there's a lot of life down there, and she met Kang. This particular flavor of Kang is Kang the Conqueror. And the other Kangs banished him down there. But Michelle Pfeiffer being down there didn't know who he was and helped him figure out how to fix the power source for his ship. Because he said, if you fix my ship, I will get you out of here. I promise you, I will get you out of here. And I love the fact that Michelle Pfeiffer's being given something to do. I love Michelle Pfeiffer. I grew up with her. She's fucking awesome. And she fixes the ship. She fixes the device. And when she goes to put it in this ship, basically because this ship is like this kind of weird thing, when she's putting it in, it psychically shows her kind of accidentally just who King the Conqueror is. And it shows her the universes he's destroyed and just how fucking like villainous this guy is. And this isn't like Thanos destroying half a universe. This is like a guy who's destroyed multiple universes in completion. And there's this great line where he looks at her and he's like, hey, he goes, I can bring you home. And she's like, yeah, but what are you going to do then? And he goes, well, I'm not going to destroy your universe. And there's this wonderful moment where like, you know that Michelle Pfeiffer's not going to do it, but the look on her face, where you're like, yeah, what do you do? That is a hell of a call, isn't it? It's if I help you, I'll get to see my kid, right? I'll get to get out of here. But you're going to go on to rip a hole through the fucking multiverse. So I love that kind of shit. And so you realize that she spent the next 30 years fighting him. And he spent the next 30 years, she gave him back just enough of his power that he could basically take over the place. But I love what they did is they didn't shrink the power source. They made the power source so big that he couldn't actually use it. I mean, it was a tiny little ball, and she made it like the size of a building. And so the problem is that he can't use it. He can't even go near it. And there's a really great sequence in there where they sent Ant-Man in to try and shrink it back down because that's what he wants the Ant-Man for. And they call it a probability storm, where he basically starts to multiply with all the possible different decisions he could make. So every moment there's like 2, then there's 4, then there's 6 and 8, and they just start, and they're not all the same. Like there's one there who never became Ant-Man, so he's still dressed like he works for Baskin Robbins. I love shit like that. It's just so wonderfully weird, and this idea that she was down there for 30 years as a freedom fighter. So when Michelle Pfeiffer ends up back down there, and so they split up the cast. You've got Ant-Man with his daughter, and then you've got Michelle Pfeiffer with the Wasp and with Hank Pym, who is played beautifully by a very cranky Michael Douglas. And she is infamous down there because she was this massive rebel fighting against Kang for 30 years, and then one day she just disappeared. So she's kind of like this weird character down there. Bill Murray, I didn't think they could use Bill Murray in a good way in this movie when I heard he was in it. And when he shows up, God, he's so good. He's not playing funny Bill Murray. I mean, he is amusing, but he's not playing funny Bill Murray. He's playing a guy who used to be with Michelle Pfeiffer against Kang. And so she goes to him looking for help. And when he shows up and he's sitting there, he's talking to her, it starts to dawn on you, like, wait a minute, this guy is not on your side anymore. And like, he plays it so fast and so kind of sleazy, and you realize that not only is this somebody who has very much changed sides, but like, he was close to her, like, which really drives Hank Pym up the wall, because she's like, you know, I was down here for 30 years. She's like, I had needs. And Bill Murray just plays it so well, where he goes from being so nice and cool to suddenly being kind of menacing. And she has this line where she's like, how could you? It's like, how could you, you know, join Kang? And he's like, you weren't around. He can be very convincing. So like, I love Bill Murray in this movie, this kind of weird role that they give him as a former freedom fighter turned, like, you know, I guess, like, you know, it's somebody who basically joins the Nazis because there's no freedom fighters left. You know what I mean? But yeah, I was completely blindsided by how much I was gonna enjoy this movie. It doesn't feel like an MCU movie to me. It feels like somebody's attempt. Like, who was the guy who did? Was it Andrew Bird? Is that the guy who directed John Carter of Mars? That's the guy who did Incredibles.
I don't know.
Bird?
Brandon Bird, maybe Brandon Bird.
It's the Pixar guy who basically, sure, the only live action movie he directed was John Carter of Mars, and it didn't work, and everybody was like, fuck this.
Sure, I don't remember the guy's name.
Yeah, Quantumania so feels like that to me. It so feels like a Princess of Mars
Andrew
style
Stanton?
Movie.
John Carter, Andrew Stanton, 2012.
Is it Stanton?
Yeah,
maybe
Andrew
it's Stanton.
Stanton. That's his name. Yeah.
Oh, then why did I thought it was Bird? Either way, yeah, Stanton. Yeah, it feels like a movie he would have directed. So.
Well, Andrew Stanton did do. He
What
wrote
does he do?
a lot of them. Directing.
Did he direct any of them?
I don't. Director. Let's see. He directed.
I thought
he directed Wall-E and Finding Nemo. He did not direct the other ones. He wrote a lot of the other ones. Oh, he directed an episode of Legion. Well, there you go. All right. So,
yeah, and the thing is, I get this feeling like this movie was too weird for people, is the feel that I get, because once Ant-Man gets down to the Quantumania, no one is quite human. Like, at one point they say to Bill Murray, they're like, aren't you human? And he says, well, that's the word she uses for it. He's like, and I'm human enough. He's like, but I don't know what you're talking about. And there's so many aliens. I mean, there's aliens everywhere. There's an alien that has broccoli for a head, you know. It's just, and I just had such a good time with it. And I didn't expect it. You know what? My daughter really got into the Ant-Man movie. She really likes them, and she really wanted to see this. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. I'll put this on. You know, no, you don't know. This is not a thing you have. With my kids, sometimes there's movies they want to see where I'm like, this is going to be me kind of side-eyeing the movie while I like read the news, right? There's a lot of movies like that. We watched Baby's Day Out a while back, which is like a slapstick 90s ridiculous comedy. Yeah, I watched it out of the corner of my eye while I was reading other things, right? There's plenty of movies we watch that are like that. And every now and then I'm like, oh no, we should see this and it'll be really good, you know, or we'll watch a movie together. I totally thought I was going to side-eye this movie. And then they got down to the quantum realm and it turned into this weird Golden Age movie. And I was just like, what the fuck? I was like, who let you guys do this? And I feel bad because people didn't like it. It was a flop, wasn't it?
The Quantumania movie?
Quantumania. I thought that
I don't think it was a flop. I just don't think it made I don't think it lost money. I just think it was one of the ones that didn't make as much as people expected it to. So I guess if you want to call that a flop now.
Yeah, so I watched this and I thought to myself, Joe would enjoy this if nothing else for the visuals. Because there's so many aliens.
It was not a flop. It doubled its budget, but I think it was the weakest Ant-Man movie, and so they consider it a failure. Because I know
I know it was so weird looking. I mean, the visuals are so all over the place, and it's one of those movies. they seem to think, you know what, we can do whatever we want because we're in the quantum realm and no one's written about this, so we can do whatever we want. And it's an intersection of so many different kind of weird alien species, so we can do whatever we want with it. And then they did, and like you've got a guy who's got a cannon for a head, and was it the guy who's basically made of ooze, and you have broccoli head, and and Kang is a weird psionic Nazi. The weakest part of the movie is the whole MODOK thing. That for me is the weakest part of the movie. Which is essentially, rather than have actually tried to do some different version of MODOK, they tried to tie MODOK into Yellow Jacket. Because MODOK is essentially Yellow Jacket from the first movie, because at the end of the first movie, he essentially shorts out Yellow Jacket's suit, and he gets like totally crushed. Well, the whole idea is he gets crushed and sent down to the quantum realm, and Kang found him, and Kang turned him into MODOK. And they were never able to fix the fact that when he went down there and shrunk, that his head and his body are a different size, which is the reason he's got the giant head. I appreciate them trying to write their way out of that. But they could have just as easily... I mean, like, there was no need for MODOK. There was no need for Yellow Jacket. That feels unnecessary. Beyond that, I enjoy the rest of the movie. I think I have 20 minutes left of it, so I don't know if it's going to fucking shit the bed in the last 20 minutes, maybe, but I enjoyed it a lot. It doesn't feel like an MCU movie to me. It feels like a weird space revolution movie, and in that sense, it's not new. In that sense, I've seen the bones of this movie before. It's just so wonderfully weird looking and messes with scenery and perspective and lets itself just get fucking weird. And that's one of those things. I love having weird in the mainstream. There isn't enough weird in the mainstream. So I was fucking surprised. I didn't think this was gonna be good. I thought it was going to be kind of like a dumb Marvel movie that I was going to just side watch. And I don't know if this review's enough to get you to watch it. I doubt it.
No, it's not, but that's okay.
I know. But yeah,
I mean, I'm not really against watching it, but I just know if I ever get to it, it's going to be when there's just nothing else, because I just have no interest in it. It's not even that I think it's bad, because I watch plenty of bad movies. I did not think Kang was anything in the Loki series. I can't imagine he's any better, because I don't like Kang as a character. I think he's boring. Whereas the High Evolutionary is the one reason I want to watch the movie that I don't want to watch. Where it's like, I want to watch Guardians 3 because of the High Evolutionary. I like that character, and I want to see a good version of him on screen. Kang, I couldn't care less. The time travel thing is another one of those aspects where I'm like, yeah, I don't care. I don't care about a time traveler. And the MODOK thing,
well,
I mean, I don't care.
Traveler. I mean, he's a
well, he is. He's a multiverse time traveler. What he is, he's both. That's the thing. He's just a super time traveler, because
he's kind of like a low rent Time Lord.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Is he's just this is the Marvel version of a super Time Lord, and it's boring. And I've never liked him in the comics, and I don't like him in live action, so I don't care. So
which is a shame, because that actor is very good. I do like him.
Well, I liked him in other things. I just don't have any interest in this.
Oh, what was it? Lovecraft Country, right?
Yeah, he was good in that. It's a shame he seems to beat women, but, outside of that.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I understand exactly why most likely they're going to
But yes, I thought Lovecraft Country was good, too. I like that series a lot. Another series got canceled, so, whatever.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't get enough really weird movies, and I've come to realize that I like weird shit. I do like weird shit.
Well, you ain't watching some of the movies I'm watching, man, because I know that it gets weird.
But it's not that weird. Like that, there's a territory of weird I enjoy, and it's not the bad movie weird. It's the whole, other worlds and messing with the idea of what living creatures looks like and what their cultures look like. It's that weird. It's challenging your what your idea of culture and creature and life and everything is. You know what I mean? Like, and not answering the question sometimes. Like sometimes shit happens and it's like, well, there's no answer for it. It's just sometimes shit just is. You know, I love that kind of weird. I like a lot of the weird shit you bring to me as well. But a lot of the stuff you bring that's weird, it's weird because like it's like the werewolf occult movie with motorcycles. That shit's weird.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird movie. It's also not. It didn't have a great budget. It's not it wasn't written especially well or directed especially well. It does have some really neat ideas.
Yes. The Polish movies would probably be your kind of
movies, and those have stayed with me. Let me tell you, the other day, I don't know what happened, but I started thinking about that whole thing with the guy who invited the main character down to his bunker, and he was like, "Well, this should be the two of us." He's like, "Well, don't worry, I have the whole female thing figured out." And he had the two frozen hookers that he'd killed or something like that. Yep. I don't know why that popped in my head, but I was like, holy, like I had a shocking moment where I suddenly thought about that for a second in the stream of my day. And I was like, man, that's fucked up.
It is.
You know, and yes, those movies are more in line with the kind of weird I like. Like, you know, it's that Brazil level of weird, but I also like when you get really out there in the absurd, you know, Rudy Rucker. I love Rudy Rucker's work because he gets out there sometimes to a place that's almost uncomfortably strange. You know, like I've mentioned this before, but so in his robot series, I think it's like wetware, software, realware. You know, it's the whole thing. The whole idea of these robots are yes, they're essentially they're artificial intelligence. They're robots that are kind of taking over culture, and they don't want to be destroyed. And they want to have their own cities and their own world. And like the first book was very weird. It took me kind of a bit to get attached to it, but then like I really got into it. And you know, in the second or third book, there's a guy who's working with the robots, and like they pay him, but the other thing they do is they figured out like his kink, and his kink is that he's got like a weird technology kink where like one of the robots would turn itself into like a liquid mass and like essentially like lay on his face and like like put out this like almost like musty vagina smell, and like this guy would get off on it, and like between that and the money he was helping the robots, and I'm like, it's just so wonderfully weird, you know, which is, I know where like you and I kind of butt up together because you like weird shit like that too. It's just that I have a strong kind of golden age sci-fi. I hate that I keep using that term, but it's the best way to kind of think of it, of, you know, the weird space opera, the weird going to other worlds and no one thinking about the fact that there's gravity and air there. You know what I mean? It's the whole Jungles of Venus type shit. Like, I like that. I like this idea, and maybe it's an extension of the whole exploratory mindset where, like, Star Trek, you love Star Trek because Star Trek is essentially about sea travel. It's essentially about ships, naval ships, going and exploring and finding different places in a planet. Well, they took the idea and they expanded it to the universe, right? And rather than meeting different kinds of humans, you're meeting aliens. They just took the idea and expanded it, which is what sci-fi is supposed to do. Sci-fi is supposed to take these ideas that people might find uncomfortable or strange and then put it kind of in an alternate light where you can look at it and go, oh, you know what? That makes sense. I'm not so scared of it now, right? I mean, which is why the first what was the first interracial kiss was on Star Trek. You know, Star Trek essentially was like, hey, we're going to show you that it's not the end of the world. Don't freak the fuck out about this, right? So I have a strong sci-fi golden age thing that runs through me, and I don't get enough of it in TV, because I think by and large most people are over it, and it's really weird. So I really liked Quantumania for that respect. No, it's not a perfect movie. There are things in the writing that I didn't like, but it was just so weird, and I love that. So And you know what? This is the counterbalance too, because there's plenty of movies you review. You know, I'm never going to see them. I'm not going to watch the Werewolf Bikers movie.
Sure.
But I do appreciate the imagery I get in my head from you telling me about them.
Well, and my first movie review might be one of those where I think you might watch this at some point. Not anytime soon, but I could see you wanting to watch this. And I believe
take it away.
This one is, let me see. Is this on YouTube? I believe it is. I know my second one is, but let me check if the first one is. It's from 1993, and it has, let's see, is it on YouTube? Yes, it is on YouTube in 2 parts, so you can actually watch this one. But it's from 1993. It's called Necronomicon. Well, it's got like 4 titles. Hold on. Let me get the correct titles for you. Let's see, 93. Hold on, because there's 4 titles. I've seen it under Necronomicon Book of the Dead, but it's also known as Necronomicon. It's also known as, where were the other ones? Okay, here we go. 4 titles. Necronomicon by itself. H.P. Lovecraft's Necronomicon. Necronomicon Book of the Dead, which is the version I saw. Or Necronomicon To Hell and Back. But they're all the same thing, which is a anthology film from the Brian Usna School of Lovecraft, which is Reanimator, From Beyond, the same. This is in that time period, which was like 1985 to early 2000s, where Jeffrey Combs was in every single Lovecraft adaptation you could possibly have, and he's in this one too. The difference being that unlike all the other movies, because Brian Usna just has a thing for grease, goop, and boobs. That's his thing. Oh,
wow. So they are all actually based off Lovecraft short stories.
I think so. I haven't read
No, they are.
everything.
I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it right here. Yeah, based on The Rats in the Walls, Cool Air, The Whisperer in the Darkness by H.P. Lovecraft. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So the
so
one
at least
with
3 of them. Yeah.
Well, the Cold Air one I recognize. The other 2, one I thought might be a play on Dagon because it's fish people, but I know he did a lot of fish people. And the last one is, well, we'll get to that. So let's start off. So it's a anthology series that's basically set up almost like Heavy Metal, where there's basically a wraparound story. There's an overarching kind of reason that we're getting these stories. It's very Books of Blood, which Usna also, I think, did an adaptation of, the Clive Barker stuff. So Jeffrey Combs is playing Lovecraft, and he says his name is Lovecraft. I mean, it's straight Lovecraft. The thing is, he doesn't look like Lovecraft. When you look at him, he looks like they tried to make him look like Bruce Campbell. Whatever chin prosthetic they put on him, whatever they did, they didn't skinny him out the way Lovecraft's face has a very skinny kind of angle to it. They just gave him a bigger chin and a bit of a nose thing, so he looks like Bruce Campbell's lost brother. It's very weird because I kept not seeing him as Lovecraft. I kept seeing him as, we couldn't get Bruce Campbell, so we wanted to make somebody look like him. Almost this would be like Bruce Campbell presents Stories of the Occult, and it was him sitting there saying, "Let me tell you a tale from this book I found," blah, 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 blah. Doesn't matter. So the opening, which I have clips for all this stuff, as I always do, because now this is my new thing, is get clips of stuff because people seem to like it. So I'm going to give you the opening narration by Combs, and this sets up the idea of the movie. So here we go. Oh, wait, hold on. I don't want to blow your ears out. Let me set the volume. I meant to do this before I hit play, but I'm glad I didn't destroy your ears. There, 50%. Okay, here we go.
It was in the fall of 1932 when I discovered that a copy of the fabled Necronomicon was here in America, being guarded by a clandestine order of Omniati monks. Obtaining this legendary tome was vital, not only to my writings, but to the fate of all mankind. For within the pages of the Necronomicon lie the very secrets of the universe, both past and future.
Yes? Yes, I have an appointment. Howard P. Lovecraft.
Right, so Combs is doing his normal Combs thing as Lovecraft.
Dude, his pronunciation.
It's weird, right?
Yeah, it reminds me of somebody else.
Yeah, and I can't think of who it is either, because I thought of that too. I'm like, oh, he's got some kind of weird thing he's doing, but I don't know what it's supposed to be. But it's very distinctive, so whatever.
So wait, that's what's his name? What's his name again?
Jeffrey Combs.
Jeffrey Combs. Okay, go ahead.
So then basically he goes into this library. There's a couple of monks, as he says, and the monks have a key, and he knows that the key unlocks a secret room that has a secret safe, and inside the secret safe is the Necronomicon. So he manages to get the key from them, breaks into the room. He thinks without them knowing, but of course they do know, and he opens the safe, and the safe has a series of locked gates behind the safe. And they're opening as each story is told. So we know there's something behind it. I mean, it's very clear where this is going. Yeah,
I know what it is. He sounds like Hugo Weaving. He sounds like Hugo Weaving.
Oh, okay. Well, sure.
That pronunciation when he's in that narration when he's talking very specifically about.
Oh, you know what? No. I think he's doing Carl Sagan because that's what Weaving was doing, and this is pre-Matrix.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe that's what it is.
Because cosmic. Yeah. That makes sense. Now that you said that, now I think he's doing a Carl Sagan thing.
Oh shit! Yeah. Now I can hear it.
Because that's what Hugo Weaving was doing in the Matrix. So that's what made me think of that. So.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah.
So he takes the book and he opens and he's taking notes, and that of course leads to these 3 stories. He's reading the stories out of the book, and story 1 is called The Drowned, and essentially starts out with a guy who I will call Discount James Spader because he looks like a Discount James Spader. I mean, it looks like, again, they tried to get James Spader. He wasn't available, so they found somebody who looked enough like him to get him. And he arrives at a family hotel that's been abandoned. And the woman who was the psychologist from RoboCop 2, that's what I know her from, is the realtor who's showing him around. And, of course, there are notorious stories about the hotel. People think it's haunted. And, by the way, there's a network of caves underneath the hotel that, if you don't sell it, at some point, these caves in the ocean will consume the hotel. So you should really sell it. By the way, do you want to have sex? And he says, nope, get out. And in the room where he's staying, he does. He tosses her. Because it's clear that she's...
By the way, do you want to have sex?
Yeah, I mean, I'm serious. She's giving him the tour, and then she sits on the bed and says, this bed looks comfortable, and kind of looks at him. And he's like, yeah, I'm sure it does. Whose portrait is that on the wall? Literally is what he does. And it's his aunt who had drowned, and his uncle, they don't know if he committed suicide, but they found him in the sea. And then he's like, all right, get out. And he kicks her out. And then he falls asleep and has this flashback where you see that he and his wife lost control of the car. He was driving. They went off a cliff. She died. He lives. And, and then the realtor stops by and says, oh, here's a letter. And by the way, you should sell the hotel because she's trying to get the hotel. So he opens the letter up, and basically now we get a flashback to his ancestor, the guy who jumped into the ocean, we find out, and is played by Richard Lynch, who is a very well-known character actor. The minute you see him, he's been in a million things. And he was in the 18 whatevers. He was on his way over from somewhere on a ship with a bunch of people, including his wife and son. There was a terrible storm. There was a shipwreck, and he was the only survivor, and his wife and son died. And when he comes to in this town, the town that Spader-Man is in, and realizes that the wife and daughter died, he pulls a Bram Stoker's Dracula, goes crazy, takes the Bible in the church off the pulpit, throws it into the fire, starts cursing God, and says, anyone who loves God is hated by me. It's exactly the Bram Stoker Dracula opening, except, he doesn't stab Jesus or a cross and blood comes out. But as soon as he finishes his rant and all the people run out of the church because of his blasphemy, a giant monster fish man walks in and says, hey, like in this kind of voice. He goes, hey, but I should have gotten the sound clip for this. I'm sorry, I'm doing this. But he's like, hey, just so you know, I like people who hate God, so you're not alone, buddy. And gives him the Necronomicon and then leaves. Awesome fish man, but he's only in the movie for maybe 25 seconds. Comes in, gives the Necronomicon, says, hey, we're the anti-God group has jackets. I'll get you one. Leaves. And so Lynch puts the book on the pulpit, and it flips itself open conveniently to a section titled Remedy for Untimely Loss. At which point he goes, well, that sounds good. Why don't I read that? And we get this invocation, which has a nice little Cthulhu bit. So here we go.
That is not dead, which can the eternal lie. And with strange eons, even death may die. In his lair, Cthulhu waits dreaming. That which is not dead can eternal lie. And with strange eons, even death may die. In his lair, Cthulhu waits dreaming.
Right. So he's basically cutting his hand into a bowl with blood and everything else and doing his incantation and then passes out. And sure enough, Pet Cemetery style, his wife and son come back to life, but there's something a little bit off about them. At first, they seem normal, but and this is all sped up because we don't have a whole movie to show their degradation. So this all happens over the course of maybe 20 seconds. So at first they're like, why did you let us die? And he's like, no, I didn't mean to. And then they open their mouths and octopus tentacles come flying out. And he's like, shit. And then, they're trying to attack him, and then they're crying blood and all this stuff. And he's miserable. And he's like, you know what? Bringing back the dead is a bad idea. So fuck it. And he throws himself. I know.
PSA, everybody.
PSA, everybody. Bringing back the dead is a bad idea.
Is a bad idea.
So he says some line about, the only path to eternal life is forgiveness or something, and then he throws himself off the balcony and kills him. And the letter that Spider-Man is reading ends where it says, I'm just glad that the Necronomicon is now guarded by, and it trails off. And so Spider-Man decides that he's going to bring his wife back, even though he just read why it was a bad idea. So he starts, tearing through the hotel.
Didn't you read the PSA? Come on.
Right. So he looks and he can't find it. And so he collapses in exhaustion. And then a fish monster under his bed says, hey, it's behind the painting you're in, dipshit. So apparently he tore everything apart except one of the most obvious hiding places, which would, of course, be behind a painting. So sure enough, he looks behind the painting. There's a little safe, and there's the Necronomicon, and he does the exact same ritual. And sure enough, his dead wife comes back. And, at first it's
Tentacles.
all fun and...
Tentacles!
Yeah, well, sort of. You're almost there. So it's all fun and games, and she's going to go down on him, and then he realizes that she's got like a tail, and he kind of looks, and then he realizes it's not a tail, but that she is in fact a morphed end of a tentacle of a giant fish monster, which is living underneath the thing. So she Cronenberg's out, and she's screaming, and her eyes turn black, and now she's attached to this tentacle, and the monster comes through the floor, and Spider-Man starts to... Yeah?
No,
you want to find it? You want to look for it?
No, I'm very curious now. Wait, so which one is this? This is the Drowned?
This is the Drowned. Yeah, so if you look...
go on.
I should have linked it to you, sorry.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Look up, yeah. So they have this big fight where, the monster has a big center eye. It's like a cyclops with a sea tentacle thing, and it's an octopus, and they're fighting, and Spider-Man manages to sever a chandelier because it's in the center of the house. Chandelier comes down and spears the thing, and then he breaks a window, and sunlight hurts it for some reason, and basically he manages to repel it into the floor.
Is this the one-eyed monster?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay,
yeah.
that's lovely effects.
Oh, the effects are great. That is going to be the reason you watch this. That's the short list version of it. Is you watch this for the effects, because the effects are why they made it. But anyway, the thing collapses into the sea. He gets to the roof, looks over the ocean, and what do you think happens when he looks over the ocean near the hotel? You want to take a guess?
He sees fish people, a whole sea full of fish people.
Astonishingly, no. It's a happy ending. He looks out and nothing happens. Because I was sure Cthulhu was going to come out of the ocean or something. But instead he looks out and kind of it fades off. And he's okay. And I went, Lovecraft stories don't usually end optimistically.
Yeah. He does look like Bruce Campbell.
Right.
There is a strong army.
Right?
I
told you. Yeah. He could have been the evil Bruce Campbell, the evil Ash if he'd been around at that point or whatever. So anyway...
Yeah,
so that story ends.
So basically, you get a further PSA on top of the first PSA, which is number 1, don't bring dead people back, right? And then number 2, don't try to have sex
don't
with
bring.
them,
right? Don't let them go down on you after you bring them back when you're not supposed to. Yes, I mean good safety tip, Egon. Thanks. So, all right, so now we cut back to the library. And now he keeps reading, and we see underneath, which somehow he doesn't notice, Lovecraft does not notice, that under the floor, there's water, and there's something moving in the water, right? So outside the library, the monks are kind of talking to each other, and one of them's like, do you really think he's stupid enough to keep reading that book? And the other one's like, well, he is a human being, after all, which I guess means they're supposed to be not humans, but that doesn't, well, it sort of pays off, I guess, but whatever.
Sorry.
What are you watching it? Are you watching it?
That's your third PSA right there.
Yeah. He's human.
We need a running list. He's really not going to do that dumb thing, is he? Well, he is human.
Humans do dumb things.
Will do the dumb things. PSA
That's
number
correct.
3.
PSA number 3. Humans do stupid shit. Correct. Yes. So sure enough, we cut back, and now we get story 2, which is called The Cold. and we are in, I don't know where the city is supposed to, I think it's Philadelphia. I think, no, Philadelphia is the third story. Wherever,
is it I think it's Boston.
Sure, it's Boston. Why
I think
not?
there's murders. Hold on, there's murders.
No, that's the last one is the...
Okay.
Well, no. Well, they all have... No, I'm sorry, you're right. The second one does have murders, and the third one has a serial killer. So I think you're right. I think this is the Boston one. So it's the Boston one, and a reporter shows up in the middle of this heat wave, a reporter shows up at a house and says, hey, I'm investigating a series of murders, and, I the last tip I got brings me to this house to try to find this guy. And the woman's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, well, if you don't let me in and let me ask you a couple of questions, I'm going to call the cops. So she lets him in, and this is our kind of intro to what this story is. So I'll play this.
What are you storing in here, meat?
I have a rare disease, Mr. Porkle. I'm acutely sensitive to heat and sunlight.
Great. I hope it's not contagious.
Hardly.
So, listen, Miss Osterman, I did some digging, and the deed on this place is executed under Dr. Richard Madden's name, and that was some 80 years ago.
Thank you, Mother.
Vampire!
According to, state files, there is no record of Dr. Richard Madden's death, which would mean that he is still alive.
Sugar?
Yeah. So, what the hell happened to Madden?
I really don't know what happened to Dr. Madden.
Maybe you don't understand me here, lady. Oh, either you cough up the truth now, or I print my story as is.
Okay, so she says, fine,
Wait,
I'll tell you.
Hold on.
Yes, go ahead.
Who the fuck threatens somebody and then drinks the coffee or the tea or whatever?
Yeah. And that will come back, of course, later.
I'm sure, but that's what I mean. Like,
yes, this guy's not a genius.
Okay, go on.
He's not a genius. So basically the woman's like, well, all I can tell you is what my mother told me. And then we get a flashback to her mother, whose name is Emily, is coming to this house to rent a room. She's just arrived, and she says, I need a place to stay, and I'm looking for a job, and we know something's going on, but we don't know what. And the woman's like, okay, I'll rent you a room. There's one other tenant, and just don't bother him. And we don't see him at first. And she's like, okay, that's fine. And so we then see her showering, which I thought at first was just a gratuitous, nudity scene. But then you see that she has scars and bruises. And so you get the idea that, oh, okay, she's on the run from somebody who's been beating her or whatever. Some kind of abuse has happened, which I like because movies like this are generally not as...
Yeah. Not that Joe likes the abuse. Let's be very clear.
No. I like the fact that they do a subtle storytelling moment. They don't have her say, I'm on the run from, somebody who's abusing me. They show you something and you get it. So the nudity serves a purpose, which is rare in movies like this, for nudity to be anything other than like, oh, boobies. So we know that there's something going on. And sure enough, that night... and she notices there's some ooze coming out of the ceiling, but she doesn't really think much of it because at first it just kind of looks like it might be water, even though it seems a little bit off from water. It's got a kind of a weird discoloration, but it's subtle, so you can see how she wouldn't think too much of it, but she notices it. It's in the roof right above her. And then that night, somebody breaks in, grabs her, and at first I thought it was, okay, boyfriend, ex-husband, but no, it's worse. It's her stepfather who is I think been raping her, and that's why she left, because apparently her mother isn't giving it up enough for him. So it's both gross and horrible. So it's like, oh, you've made it even worse. Now it's not just the rape or the abuse of a loved one, but one who's in a parental role. Great, this is even worse. So right then, the door bursts open, and in comes David Warner. Dr. David comes in. He's the mystery tenant, and stabs... the stepfather, who then falls down the stairs, and Emily collapses because of the stress of the situation and falls down, hits her head. So she wakes up, and Dr. David is there, and she says, oh, what happened to my stepfather? And he says, don't worry, he's gone. And she says, why is this room so cold? And he's like, oh, I have a medical condition.
Yes. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
You know what? Yeah. I know this Lovecraft.
Right. And I remembered it as this was going. I went, okay, I've read this. I know this story.
Yeah.
So he shoos her out, And then, of course, we see that he is dripping the same ooze that was coming through her ceiling. So he's not bleeding, he's oozing. And what it is he's melting because, just even a mild exposure to her body heat is making him start to melt. So he shushes her out. And then that night, she wakes up and she sees more ooze, but now it looks bloody. So she kind of gets herself out of bed. She goes up and hears some noises from Dr. David's apartment, opens it up and sees that not only he, but that the person who rented her the house, the woman who rented her the room, are cutting up a body. So she flips out, passes out, wakes up the next day, no stain on the ceiling. And Dr. David says, oh, no, you didn't see anything. You had a concussion and you were just dreaming. Everything's fine. And she's like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that could be because it couldn't, what I saw couldn't be real, which, does make some sense.
Yeah, I suppose if you saw something that was really that out there, you'd be like, surely not. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So she goes across the street or nearby the local restaurant and applies for a job. And the guy who owns the restaurant says, oh, yeah, okay, sure. I can have a job for you. And he's like, I'll have you wait on a couple people and we'll see how you do. And she says, oh, okay, I'm staying over in this house. He's like, oh, really? I didn't even know anybody was still there. I've only ever seen the woman. I thought that the guy was long dead. And she's like, huh, okay. And she goes over and waits on a table, and it's a couple of cops, and they have a missing poster, and who should be on the missing poster but her stepfather, right? So then she immediately figures out, maybe Dr. David isn't the guy that I thought he was. So she goes to confront him. And as she's doing that, he starts to collapse and he's starting to drip. And he says, you have to get me into this. He has basically like a sarcophagus. He's like, you got to get me in there. And you got to dump ice on me. Otherwise, I'm going to die. So she puts him in there. She dumps a bunch of ice on him. And then once he recovers, he explains what's going on.
Within these pages is the secret of preserving life. Are you familiar with the water bear? It's a microorganism which can be dried under certain conditions, then brought back to life with water. A process called cryptobiosis. You see, the decreased body temperature results in a cessation of aging, making it possible to actually cheat death, as it were.
How old are you, Dr. Madden?
I don't come out here much anymore. Lena, bless her heart, simply won't allow it.
Lena's very protective over you. Are you in love with her?
My heart has been given over to my work unconditionally. I don't know why Lena stays on. I can never return the feeling she has for me. Like all children of nature, this rose was destined to wither and to perish. And yet that process is not irrevocable.
So, of course, David Warner's always great. He gets
David Warner is always awesome.
He's great. He's great in this. I mean, this is by far the best of the whole movie, the whole anthology, this segment. So Lena, who you mentioned, is the woman who rents the place, in case you didn't pick that up. And she is in love with him, but it's unrequited. But guess who he's fallen for? The woman who is probably half his age, and they have a very gross and age-inappropriate sex scene, and they are observed by the woman renting the house.
Doesn't he melt on her?
No, because I don't know. So anyway, it doesn't matter. I don't know why. Maybe the greenhouse, which seems paradoxical, is very hot or very cold. Whatever. He manages to have sex with her because I guess sex transcends all medical conditions or lust, whatever. The renter sees it, goes crazy, and basically confronts the woman while he's in his sarcophagus cooling down after their steamy sex scene and says, look, I'm either going to kill myself or I'm going to kill you. And then Emily says, well, I don't want any part of this. I didn't know this. I'm not trying to be part of this. And she runs out and then finds out that she's pregnant. So she's got Dr. David's baby. So she has to go back and tell him. She goes back and finds Dr. David and the Lena lady are trying to kill the restaurant owner. And she tries to stop them and starts a fire.
Is there ever an explanation for it?
Oh, he has to. I think it's because he has to drain spinal fluid. That's why, because he subsists on spinal fluid as part of his treatment. So not only does he have to be cold,
so he is kind of like a vampire. Yeah.
Well, he's got like a reanimator serum. Because that's what when he talks about the rose, he injects the rose with a serum. It's not glowing green because they already did reanimator, but then it brings the rose back to life. That's what he's talking about when he says, "Oh, everything dies, but it's not something we can't cure." So that serum is based on spinal fluid. So he tries to explain. She doesn't want to hear it, and she starts a fire. And when she starts the fire, and this is without a doubt the best effects scene in the whole movie, his melting scene is incredible. It is so gross and well done, and it goes on for a long time till he finally just falls apart. It's great. I mean, it is the best effects thing in the whole, and it's all practical, of course. It's just beautiful. I mean, it is the reason to watch it. If you don't watch any other segment, watch this one. And so then we cut back to the present, and of course, what the reporter realizes as he starts to collapse drugged is that the woman he's talking to is in fact Emily, who then, because she got shot and then Dr. David injected her, and so now she has the condition. That's why the apartment's cold, and Lena the renter is still living there and helps her kill people to keep herself alive. And as far as I could tell, she's eternally pregnant. She can't give birth. She's stuck as a permanently immortal, can't have any warmth, pregnant woman. And so that's weird. The way it ends, is them like going to inject him, and he collapses and it fades to black, and that's the end of the story. Yeah, it's really weird, but it's the best one of the whole thing because it's David Warner, because of the melting scene, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, okay, now we cut back to the library, and yet another gate in the safe opens, and outside of the room we see one of the monks look in and go, uh-huh, and locks the door to lock Lovecraft in. Okay? So now we get to story 3, which is called Whispers. Why it's called Whispers and not The Butcher, because they keep talking about the serial killer's name as The Butcher, and the other ones are all The something. But this one's called Whispers, which, I'm sorry, but there's no whisper element in this story. This segment is strange. It's strange top to bottom. The editing is bizarre. The opening is so weird and oddly made that I just literally clipped the whole thing. Now I need to set this up properly, because what you're going to hear is the first thing that happens in this segment. There is nothing that we see beforehand. There is no setup. There's no explanation. There's nothing. We get dropped into a high-speed car chase, right? It's a criminal running from 2 police officers, and you're going to hear the 2 police officers, but I'm not kidding when I tell you that this is how it starts. This is the opening, with no setup and no exposition and no previous exposition. Here we go. This scene is fucking wild.
God damn it, Sarah, slow down. What the hell are you trying to prove anyway?
I'm trying to prove anything. I'm pursuing a suspect.
This is bullshit. Now pull over. Look, don't bring what's personal into this. We both got too much at stake here.
This is True Carl Niner heading east on 7th Street in pursuit of a gray Nova license plate. YVU169. Damn it.
Suspect is driving reckless and refuses to listen to reason. Request air support. Over. Alright. You wanna hurt me? Slam on your brakes. Smash the head of the fucking dashboard. But don't play with me, Sarah. I know we shouldn't have slept together, okay? I'll quit. You want me to leave? I will leave!
Wait for it.
Hurt yourself.
I'm scared, Paul. I'm scared to be a mother.
What the fuck? This all happens. And this minute and 6 is like, the opening of the thing.
It's like a crazy action movie, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, it's like, dude, you don't need to hurt me. It's a mistake that we.
It is I literally named the file Bizarre Chase Dialogue because I don't know what else to call it. This is our intro to this segment. So it's so weird. I mean, it is the weirdest thing.
Listen, if nothing else, I thank you for the laugh, because that came so out of nowhere.
It really does. It does. It's strange, right? So, okay. So sure enough, they wreck, and he gets fucked up. She gets banged up a little bit, and she sees the suspect that they were chasing, who she notices has pink spray painted boots for some reason, I guess just so we know who it is, pulls the guy out, and he's like yelling, but she's dazed and she can't really find him, and she's trying to pursue, but she's all fucked up because she hit her head, and she takes this long fall and gets knocked out. When she comes to, she finds this guy named Harold, who at first she thinks is the suspect, but then he says, no, I own the building. He's like, I'm the landlord. He says, who are you looking for? And she says, my partner was captured and taken. He says, oh, I bet it's the butcher. I think he lives here. I think that's who took him. And she says, okay, well, show me where he lives. And he's like, all right, I'll take you. Don't worry, I'll get you there. And so he takes her to his apartment, and in his apartment is this weird woman who he says she's his wife, but then when he leaves the room, she's like, well, I'm not really his wife. And she's like, oh, she like does this aura thing where she kind of like puts her hands there. She's like, oh, you're pregnant. Oh, okay. And by the way, the Necronomicon just happens to be on their end table. And she's like, well, don't tell him anything, but I'm not really his wife. I'm just his girlfriend. And the butcher is an alien, just, so you know. And she's like, what? And she's like, yeah, he's an alien. So then the guy comes back and is like, all right, I'll show you where he is. And she's like, okay. So she kind of just shakes her head at the woman, and she follows Harold. And Harold is taking her down these stairs and through these tunnels. And all the tunnels eventually start to have kind of what you would expect as far as the carvings and Lovecraft-looking imagery and all that stuff. And then he gives her what he says is the butcher's backstory, which is this.
Yeah, I thought that we were looking for your partner's trail.
Wait a minute. It looks like there's 2 sets of tracks here.
Well, you don't think your partner's the first one down here, do you? They don't call him the butcher for nothing.
Well, your wife said that she thinks that the butcher's an alien.
Well, that's ridiculous. Truth is, the butcher's working for Alien, but he isn't one himself. See, my guess is he's betting God's a goner and putting all his chips on another horse. Just like
So is he the butcher?
Yeah, of course he is.
Okay.
Yeah, he's the butcher. Of course he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they go into this chamber, and the chamber has people being dismembered and being fed to a giant snake god. And in the center of the room, there's this big pit. And then, somehow, this officer, who is apparently a trained police officer, happens to look at his shoes, and sure enough, they're pink. So he's the butcher or whatever. So the strange woman, or the girlfriend, shows up and then lights the woman on fire and kicks her into the pit. She falls down, and it's a dismemberment pit. She manages to peel her clothes off. She survives. She's not nude or anything, but she takes her uniform off. And then she gets on a stone tablet, and she starts begging for her life. And she gets attacked by this, what looks like a bat, and she's shooting at it. And she misses, but she's hitting the walls, and the walls are bleeding green blood. And then her partner, or sex partner, whatever he is, he's there, and he's somehow a zombie without a brain, because you see the back of his head, and there's nothing there. But he's animating, and he's like flopping all over there, and he's like yelling her name. And then she knocks her down, and she looks at him, and he like rips into pieces and becomes a bat thing, like a snake bat. I was about to say a bake snat. He becomes a bake snat, and in his belly is the guy's brain, which can somehow talk. And the brain says, they need our brains to breed, blah. At which point she starts to collapse, and then the strange woman and the butcher, or Harold, whatever his name, show up, and we get what's going on as far as this story, and that's this little bit of exposition.
2 birds with 1 stone. Just think of this as a womb.
It's the belly of the beast.
A chance to be reborn into a better world.
And it's free.
Soon all the pain and frustration of being human will be no more than a bad old dream. It's time for you to think about things differently. It's time for you to see things the way they really are.
Okay, she takes her glasses off and she has no eyes. And of course, this is kind of the classic thing where they're going to take her body and she will become the vessel for a new creature of some kind, right?
Yeah.
So the woman, then the strange girlfriend vomits up this saw blade mouth thing, and the officer starts screaming, and then it cuts to her being in a hospital. And Harold is actually a doctor, and explains to her, and then the woman shows up, and the woman is her mother, and the doctor says, yeah, you were in a bad car accident. Your partner is right next to you over in the next bed, and your brain was inventing things to deal with the trauma that you had. So you're fine. You're pregnant. We figured that out, but luckily the baby's okay, and you'll be all right. And she's like, well, show me my partner. He's like, okay, all right. And he goes over and he pulls the curtain back. And of course the partner's a zombie, and that was another fake out. And now we cut back to the pit that she never left. So for some reason we got this fake out thing, which, lasted for maybe 60 seconds or so. And then, she starts screaming, and then she starts laughing like a maniac, and it fades to black, and that's it. So then we go back to the library, and the monk comes in and says, oh, put the book back. But as he goes to put the book back, it's actually the monk is trying to set him up to be attacked by some kind of mouth monster that lives in the safe. But Lovecraft, he grabs the monk's face and peels his face back over his head.
I saw the image of that.
Yeah, it's great. It's wild.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. It's great. And when he does that, he blinds the monk, manages to put him in front of him, and the monster takes him, sucks him into the safe. The safe seals up, and Lovecraft manages to escape with the Necronomicon, and that's it. That's the end of the movie. It's basically he got it, now he's on his way. So if you like the Lovecraft movies that these people made, like if you like Reanimator, that type of thing, it's a fun movie. The only problem with it is they put the movies are out of order. What they should have done, because the last one is the weakest one, that Whispers one, it's just the effects are good.
It should have been the first one.
It should have been the first one. It should have been the first one. Then I would have done.
Start with the weakest one, end with the strongest ones.
Well, now you can go two ways on this. You could have ended with The Cold because it is the strongest one in terms of David Warner. However, The Drowned has the happy ending. So depending on how you'd want to do it, you could either have the happy ending, where at least there's one story where people come out okay, or you could have done The Cold as the last one. But no matter what, Whispers should have been first, because the story itself is fine. There's nothing really special about it. There's nothing surprising about it. The effects are great, as they are in all of these. But it's very weirdly edited. There are strange jumps and things that happen where I just don't feel like it was made properly. So that's my only real problem with this movie. But regardless, the effects will pull you through. It doesn't really matter because the effects are good. So it doesn't really matter. So overall, fun movie. Again, if you like Reanimator, From Beyond, Dagon, if you like these types of movies that these guys were making, this feels like it's just like them. I mean, you could watch these in a sequence, and it's at that level of quality. It's a B-movie Lovecraft, like gore fest. Special effects fest, I should say. It's very fun. It's not as good as like From Beyond or Reanimator, but
that makes me really think about that Alan Moore book I read. Not the Necronomicon one, but like the sequel.
Oh yeah. I don't remember the name of it. It's with a P, right?
God.
Isn't it with a P?
Yeah, Providence. I think it's Providence.
Providence. That's it.
Providence,
That's it.
Yeah. It really makes me think of that Alan Moore book because I mean it's the same kind of let's use Lovecraft to make something truly fucking bizarre.
Yeah. No, and like I said, I liked this because the effects and the people in it are good. They're all B-movie character people you would see in a lot of this type of stuff. Jeffrey Combs, David Warner, like reliable.
But good actors. They were good actors.
I agree. Yeah. No, good actors. That's what I'm saying is I still think this would be worth people watching. You just have to understand that last story is the weakest one. So that's the only bad part about it is they put that at the end. Now, honestly, you could watch it out of sequence and it won't matter because it doesn't matter in what Lovecraft himself is doing. You would just have to jump around on the actual movie. But if you only watch, you could watch the first two and then just skip to the ending and you're fine. You could skip the last one, but you're going to miss some cool effect stuff. Like the zombie guy when he's flopping around is great because he's got no brain. And like they did a whole, looks like a full body puppet that somebody's animating or, making animatronicing or whatever. It's great. So you just have to understand the story itself is a little janky, but whatever. I don't think if you're watching this, you really care that much. If you're just there for a good time with Lovecraft, you'll have a good time with Lovecraft. So that's
having a good time with Lovecraft.
Yeah. And you can watch it on YouTube. It's just split into two parts from what I saw. That's the only bad part about that is you have to watch it in two parts, but who cares? So then my second movie, and this is just, Rojan over at Project Archivist sent me a message and said, hey, were you aware that there's an Andy Sidaris movie that's before all the movies you watched? That was his second movie. That is like this. It's like basically a James Bond type action movie that he made. It's called Seven from 1979, which unfortunately everybody hears the title Seven. You think of the David Fincher movie, but it's not this. So it's called Seven from 1979. And I went into this expecting it to be...
Whoa, Jesus, look at this.
This thing is a work of art.
I'm going to watch the trailer. Go on.
Trashy art, but art nonetheless, because this movie has such a beautiful premise, and it's so earnestly well done while never being anything more than an Andy Sidaris film. So I don't want to set unrealistic expectations here, but this might be... I might like this as much as Hard Ticket to Hawaii because of the way the story is put together and then executed. So it's a very, very simple story to actually explain. And the story is that essentially it's setting up 7 villains that all have to be defeated in 30 minutes. That's the premise, is that there is a threat to the island of Hawaii, and there are these 7 villains that are all working together, Sinister 7 style instead of 6. They're working for a guy named the Kahuna, who is played by the actor who played Luca Brasi in The fucking Godfather. Who, if you've ever seen The Godfather, you know who Luca Brasi is. It's that actor. As soon as I saw him, I went, "Oh man, they got this guy.
Wow,
he's great."
This is like Ocean's 11 of.
It is.
Yeah.
Look. I'm just gonna tell you here. I pulled clips. This movie is so beautiful. I have to explain it properly. So what we get in the opening, we get this opening where we just see multiple people being gunned down.
Yeah,
now you start to
7. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
This descriptor, I think, is perfect for this.
Sure.
The FBI acquires the services of an ex-agent turned assassin, Drew Savano, who in turn assembles a team of 7 hitmen. Right?
Yep.
That's all you need to know.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it is. But it's so... I had to pull a bunch of clips for this because basically it's a 3-part film. Okay? The opening, which is very brief, just shows you people getting killed. So you understand that there's a bunch of murders happening. Now, the only important things about the opening that you really would want to know, or that you'll notice right away, are that you immediately see an Andy Sidaris staple, which is a guy he must have known who could do skateboard tricks. This guy is the guy who gets blown up in Hard Ticket to Hawaii. The guy carrying the sex doll with the shotgun, who gets hit into the air and then gets rocket exploded before the guys then shoot the sex doll with a rocket as well. So not only does that skater actor appear in this, but so does a sex doll in a prominent plot point. So clearly, Andy Sidaris knew his shit and just stayed with it. Helicopters. The only thing missing, is an RC vehicle. There's no radio-controlled vehicles yet. But the chopper's there, the skater guy's there, the sex doll is there, the professor character who appears in Hard Ticket is in this. So, in the opening, the only sound clip you need from the opening is when the skater guy appears to assassinate Terry Kaiser, who most people would know as the dead guy from Weekend at Bernie's, the actual body they're carrying around. He's in it for maybe 5 minutes and he gets assassinated. And the skater guy's blocking the car, which led me to capture this clip, which I will probably use for other things.
Oh my God. What the fuck is he doing? Hey, asshole, move! What the hell do you think you're doing? Get out of the way! Move it! Get out of the way!
I just think that's a beautiful clip. I don't really care, but it doesn't have anything to do with the plot. It's just funny.
Can I tell you some lovely, weird things about this movie?
Please do.
There is no credited composer for the film. Andy Sidaris may have possibly used music from ABC's Wild World of Sports.
Very possible.
Because he worked on that show for more than a decade.
Oh, he did. That's how he got his in. So, he was doing sports stuff on television.
Yeah. So they think that he just pulled all that music to do the music for the movie.
I wouldn't be shocked. I would not be shocked. So as you said, we get the setup where they want to use this guy to assemble the team, right?
Yeah.
So basically, They go to the guy and they say, okay, you're the best because you'll kill anybody in your way, and we need you to do this. And he's like, okay, I'll do it, but I need $7 million, and I need complete freedom to assemble my team. They're like, go for it. So he starts going around, and the middle of the movie is him going to each member of the team and describing their villain boss to defeat and why he's assigning them to him. And I'm going to play every one because these descriptions are fucking sensational. They're just so good because of the actor whose name is, I think, William Smith, maybe, who was on the Western Laredo, which I never watched, or Laredo, however you're supposed to say it.
The main guy?
Yeah, Drew, what's his name?
Dude, that guy's awesome.
I
was just looking at it. That guy, he was growing up, he was the villain the villain. He's the guy who fights Clint Eastwood in Any Which Way But Loose.
Okay. Sure.
Where everyone bets on them, I love that guy. He showed up as a villain a ton, but he does a really good guy as well.
Okay. Well, he's great in this. So he does all the setup. So I'm going to give you each one and then explain each one as they go. But here you go.
You're still leading a hard life, huh?
Simple girls just do what they can. I think much better when I'm relaxed.
Look, I'd like to talk to you alone.
This is Jenny.
Hello.
She's a pro, and she goes with me wherever I go.
I'll go fix us something cold to drink.
I got a little business I want to talk over with you.
You know I always like to listen to what you've got to say.
Alexa, could you use some bucks?
Sure could. But this time I like to have enough left over so I could, keep you for a while.
Here it is, and it's a toughie.
I'm in.
That's a typo of a sentence.
Your man is Ronald Kahala. You'll find him living on the island of Kauai. But you have to look hard for this bastard. That's why they call him the Hermit. Extortion, loan sharking, gambling. The Hermit's big rig is right off the top in this field. Ask anybody in the islands about his way of doing business. The son of a bitch is in a class all his own when it comes to persuasion. Once you get a good look at this guy, you'll never forget him. And he's just as mean as he is ugly. He likes to do his own killing, so you watch out. The Hermit considers it good advertising. And besides that, he just enjoys the hell out of it. 3 years ago, he was just another tourist aboard a commercial jet over the Mediterranean. Hijackers took command, forced a landing. There was a fire. Kahala's wife died in his arms. The terrorists took him with them. He became one of them for a while. And then he hired out as a hitman in Paris. And now he's on the islands collecting money. There's just one thing that'll bring him down off his mountain into the open. Girls. And if I remember correctly, Alexa, that's where you shine.
Right. So he assigns her to it because she's a very good-looking woman, and so her mission is to go and seduce him.
She's the Playboy Playmate, right?
Correct. Barbara Lee.
Yeah.
Right? So it does look like they found somebody who might have actually gotten burned on the bottom of his face because his face is fucked up. So at first I couldn't really tell, and then they show him a close-up, and it's like, whoa, yeah, they found somebody who looked messed up. So when he says he's as mean as he is ugly, you actually see that. So that's the first one because there's 7 of these guys. So then he goes and he finds the stereotypical cowboy on a horse with the big 10-gallon hat and has his assignment for him.
Cowboy, I got a job for you.
What's the job?
Well, you draw ticket number 2. It's a young fella named Butterfly. Cowboy, your target is Arthur Chester Lincoln. They call him Butterfly, his trademark. The errant wings of happiness. Except the rush he starts leaves a lot of fallen flyers. For visibility, he's a big surfer, which makes him very popular with a young crowd. But what his hip little legion doesn't know is that they all wind up buying indirectly from the butterfly. He's into every avenue of drug trade in the islands, dealing in anything that'll turn a profit. You name it. From a kid's first toke to PCP, nitrates, hypnotics, cocaine, and heroin. He gets the newcomers going with his freebies, and then he sucks them dry.
Trust the butterfly. You're gonna be on a good trip. This first one's on me. You're gonna enjoy this one. It's gonna be good.
All right. Let's do it. I trust you, Butterfly. Anything you say, man.
Cowboy, I don't have to tell you your man is also responsible in one way or another for all the OD deaths that are on the rise. That's some butterfly.
I see you're still wearing that medal from the '64 championships.
Yep, Drew, it's my good luck piece.
Boy, that was a long time ago. Can you still do it?
Well, I might be a little rusty, but I can still handle it.
So Cowboy is the gunslinger, the sharpshooter. So that's why he goes to him. Basically, he goes to him, and he's the medal that he's talking about, which will be a plot point later, is for his ability to do target shooting. So he's got like the classic belt with all the bullets and, the peacemaker. Right. So he gets assigned the butterfly. Right. And when he's talking about
the butterfly.
Trust the butterfly. So they almost make him out to be like a Manson light, where the people that he gives drugs to, like it's his little club of people. They don't really do much with that, but that's what I think they're angling for. And so then he goes to a drag racer named TK, and TK gets his assignment, which is the gun runner, Mr. Chin.
Listen, haven't you ever heard of Alexander Graham Bell? I mean, can't you use the telephone? Look, man, you really psyched me up when you showed up out there.
I was just trying to get your attention.
Well, you got it. TK Ramsey, Superfly of Orange County Raceway, talking at you.
I got something for you, TK.
Yeah, I was born in the night, but not last night, Drew. Look, a brother could get killed knowing you.
Well, you jump higher and run faster than anybody I know. And I need that.
Akito Chin. Known by all as simply Mr. Chin. Weekends find him in Honolulu looking after his fleet, where he's beginning to get a stranglehold on the docks with his shipping conglomerate. Transporting and selling guns, dope, people, whatever. And when it comes to discipline in the ranks, no one does it like Chin.
Kim, I have a job for you. Mr. Fong came up 4 cases of guns short. We gotta teach him a lesson. Listen, pick up his son at the Kailani school today and shoot off his kneecap.
Oh, God.
Either one, dummy. I don't care.
Yeah.
Now you get on with it.
Life itself means absolutely nothing to Chin. He once ordered a boatload of illegal refugees blown to pieces rather than be apprehended by the coastal authorities. All of Chin's important meetings usually take place on Kauai. He has his own private golf course there, and he never misses his Saturday and Sunday rounds.
Coast Guard is making problems for us. They're onto the gun shipment, Mr. Chin.
Hey, listen, don't worry. They can be deterred. Now, Cahoon has promised us this, and he's gonna jam the radio until we get the shipment through, okay?
I don't know.
I know. Listen, you better get that shipment through on time.
Take care of him in your own way, TK. But remember those refugees. I wouldn't mind seeing this man explode.
Right, so then he goes to who I named Professor Pervo. Now, Professor Pervo is also in Hard Ticket to Hawaii. And in that one, he plays, literally they call him the professor in that one too, but he's not in that movie as much as he's in this one. Now, in this one, he's basically the brainiac, kind of the Dean Stockwell Escape from New York type, where he knows everything and he makes all the plans. And he's the one who has a sex doll that actually is in his carry-on luggage when he flies to Hawaii, and will be a plot point later when it's used as somehow something that fools people into thinking it's a real woman. But he goes to Professor Pervo, and Professor Pervo is going to draw up all the plans, but also gets assigned somebody for himself.
Now, whatever you got there has to be reliable. What's your range on that new weapon?
I was 8 miles.
8 miles?
8 miles, maybe more. You see, the Russians developed this missile. It's a marvelous scientific accomplishment. But science only enters into it on a very fundamental level. Getting the victim in the precise target area at the precise time, that is the challenge. Then I lock that laser onto him, and as you say in the West, that sucker goes. It is a man. Is he orderly and precise?
Is he bear shit in the woods?
Very good, very good. Oh, true. Speaking of things animalistic, what do you think would be the scientific result of crossing an onion and a donkey?
Why don't you just go ahead and tell me?
Most of the time, of course, you're going to get an onion with large, floppy ears. But on occasion, dear friend, on occasion, you will get a piece of ass that will bring tears to your eyes.
As I said, Professor Pervo, right? I mean,
George Keoki McDowell. He's made to order for you.
Here are the stock certificates, Mr. McDowell. I think you'll find them all in order.
A master at money and points manipulation, here is a badass. Perfectly tailored for your complicated routines. This guy McDowell is a financial wizard of the organization, and he's got a real deathlock on certain public officials because of money he controls. Easy marks for his bribes. As a result, Keoki McDowell has been the hidden man in almost every shady land deal and building scandal in these islands in the past 5 years.
Right, so that's who's assigned to the professor, and they make that big deal about the weapon that he's got because that's going to be used twice at the end of the movie. But there's a whole sequence where you literally just watch him, I'm going to say over the course of 10 minutes, assembling what is essentially a rifle that fires a little missile, which is sort of adorable when you actually think about what it is. But that's his assignment, and then he goes to one of my favorite characters in the whole movie, which is the martial artist Ed Parker. Now, Ed Parker looks like a 70s version of Homer Simpson, who is a martial arts expert, which is delightful. He looks like somebody that you would go to for soft serve ice cream, not somebody who's a martial artist. Now, I don't know if the guy was a real martial artist or not, and it's totally a judging the book by the cover type of thing. For all I know, the guy is ripped like the Kingpin. That's possible, but he just looks like the friendliest guy around, like he should be in a teddy bear suit. And he goes to him to assign him his target.
How's your head?
My head and hands are working fine, Drew.
It's good. It's good. I need him.
Sorry, I'm not playing that game anymore.
Tell me, did you ever hear of a Mr. Lee, a Mr. Chin, a Keoki McDowell, a Butterfly, a Hermit, the Kahuna?
Hey, casting a Hawaiian horror story?
Your man, Ed, is Wally La, commonly called Mr. Lee. But there's nothing common about this one. His office is a penthouse of the Hawaii building, where he's amassing one of the finest art collections in the world. All items stolen from museums, traded for lives, power, the whole range of illegal influences.
What do you have in there for me, Mr. Hamill? Mr. Lee, this is one of the world's finest pieces of porcelain from the Ming Dynasty.
Surrounded by bodyguards, Mr. Lee is the one figure who provides all the contacts for the Combine in Southeast Asia.
Very nice gesture.
With offices in Hong Kong, Saigon, even Hanoi.
It's just the thing I was looking for my collection. I really appreciate it, gentlemen.
Well, there's one special thing you should know about him. He works 4 hours a day on the one art he doesn't have to steal. Kung Fu.
You're on. Let's call it charity for us Hawaiians.
Well, that's more better, brother.
Okay.
Right, so martial artist to go catch a martial artist. So that's his assignment. Then we get a character who is, well, I didn't take any clips of his comedy. He's basically the comedian of this movie. The problem is most of his comedy is horribly racist and sexist, so I didn't bother capturing any of that. But apparently, and I really don't know why this character would be assigned to the master hitman of the island, but I guess the plan he uses makes sense, although there's no way that Drew could have known it ahead of time. So there's no special skill that we're aware of with it. So I don't really know. I have a feeling that Andy Sidaris just knew this guy as an actual comedian in real life and wanted to put him in his movie probably because he was cheap. Because otherwise, this character makes next to no sense.
Drew, this is Devil's Island. Nothing matters here.
Well, I tell you what, I got something that matters, but I didn't want to talk to you about it until you get yourself together.
I'm together. Take a good look at me here. I'm on the critical list at Jack LaLanne, but I'm together.
If I was to ask you who is the biggest hitman on this island, who would you say?
Kimo Medeiros.
You want to go to work?
Kimo Medeiros? Kimo himself? Yeah, why not? If they take me out, we could chalk up a big one for the good guys.
Look, you know your bartender is nothing but ears. You know that, huh?
He's all right. He's a pineapple.
All right. What is a pineapple?
You got it.
I don't know.
Kimo Medeiros, the hitman, always seems to have somebody on his payroll. Kimo points his finger, and his extra hands get the job done. His legitimate front is booking acts for clubs, lining up talent. But his real specialty is human persuasion. Case in point, the senator, his assistant, 3 of his best investigators, and one of their wives, all dead in less than 12 hours. Take the bastard out.
Okay, now it occurs to me that guy's a comedian, therefore the booking acts thing is the angle. Okay, that makes sense. I didn't put that together because I'm sitting there and the comedian, he's kind of a schlubby looking guy, so I was kind of thrown off by the rest of them kind of look like they should be on a team. This guy seems to be a shitty comedian in a no-name club, but I guess because of the club angle, that now makes sense. Otherwise, it would make 0 sense. But I don't know what a pineapple is either, because the bartender's a white guy, so I don't know what that means.
Yeah,
Maybe that's a Hawaiian term for white people?
I just looked it up, and I couldn't find anything that would make sense. But yeah. Interesting.
I don't know. I don't know what a pineapple is. So whatever. That gets assigned to the comedian. And finally, we have the one that's assigned to Drew, which is the kahuna.
The kahuna. The expert. His real name, Daniel Sakura Carmine Hoffman. His distinctive feature is information. Lucrative government leaks. On Oahu, he owns an unassuming electronics firm and plays the electronics game to the hilt. The kahuna can lay a wiretap on just about any top government post in Hawaii. For privileged facts, that can cost people's lives.
You call yourself a bodyguard?
Hey, you want to try me sometime?
Kahuna's information is the reason behind these 7 scum staying ahead of the investigations. And the Kahuna's organization operates with the relentlessness of a time bomb. So from here we move fast. Tomorrow we all meet at Ed Parker's house outside Honolulu.
Okay, so now we have everybody in their assignments. So they're going to meet up, and just before they meet up, Drew stops over to have sex with Alexa because sure, why not? And while he's with her, he gets a phone call from the government and whoever's went to him. They never even make it clear, but let's just say the government. The government's like, yeah, we heard that you want to just take out all 7, but honestly, we think all you got to do is kill the kahuna and the rest will just scatter. So don't bother with them. We just want you to go after kahuna. And Drew's like, fuck you. You told me I could do what I want, so this is what I'm going to do. And they're like, well, you better stick with just the kahuna and we're going to have somebody watching. He's like, eat shit. And then explains to Alexa what the whole plan is. Because at this point, we don't really know why all these people are working together. You get the idea that they're working for the kahuna. The kahuna is putting this together, but you don't have a real reason why. And then Drew explains what it is.
But unless we move fast on this, there might not be any so-called paradise here anymore. All of these islands would fall under a shadow. From Honolulu here to Hilo, Lahaina, up to Lahui. Every place. Their plan is to destroy what is here and cultivate a new order. First, out of fear and intimidation, the tourist business would drop off to nothing. And as soon as that happens, the element we're after closes in for the big kill, to prey on a collapsing economy.
So basically, they want to make everything into a hell so that they can buy up all the land and then renovate it and make all the money as a huge, super Hawaiian criminal empire that I guess the government just won't notice or something. Whatever, it doesn't matter. For a movie like this, it's a perfectly fine excuse. So he gets everybody together, and now all these clips are the middle of the movie. And as it's happening, I'm just playing the audio of it, but you're seeing him drive around, meet with these people, and this is the whole middle, which is great because it's a series of you seeing the villains and what they're doing. So we're getting the whole layout, which for a movie like this is unusual. The way this is done, it's fascinating because you keep waiting for the next villain and the next explanation. So it's just the pacing is great because it just keeps you interested because you're like, okay, who's the next guy and who's the member of the team? So it just moves you through it because this is only about I think it's 101 minutes. So it's just over an hour and a half. So this is the whole middle is like flying by because he's driving around and he's talking to all these people. So you're not even noticing that the movie is just ripping through. And so finally he gets them all together and he says, okay, here, and he's going to explain the plan, which this scene too is just, I don't know, man, maybe it's just me, but I was eating this shit up just because of the way he's explaining it and the fact that there's all this stuff happening on the screen. It's just really wonderfully done. And then we get the big kind of meat of what the last half hour of the movie is going to be, and it's this.
But unless we move fast on this...
Oh, sorry, wrong one. I replayed the wrong one. Sorry. Here we go.
Well, let me fill you in a little bit on this thing. First of all, it's no ordinary cleanup job. And we're not dealing with a bunch of dummies from the underworld. These guys know enough about this island, so they're gonna go out there and grab off an outlying hotel and probably kill enough hostages to make the biggest headline of the goddamn decade. You see, the man, the big man, the kahuna, is running the whole show himself. And he's got 6 of Chemo's hardest dudes pulling the trigger. And there's also a little gentleman named Mr. Chen who is furnishing the weapons. You see, all of these 7, your 7, are involved in this thing. And they're gonna cash in when it's over. Example, Keoki McDowell. He's gonna pick up all the plunging real estate because the land on these islands ain't gonna be worth a damn plug nickel after they're through. Then there's one other little thing. My contact, Mr. Harris, tells me he's got an agent babysitting us, and I don't have any idea who it is. So this is the last time we meet as a unit. From now on, it's top security. You understand? All right, today's Thursday. Our mission ends at 12:30, Sunday. And our mission begins no later than 12 o'clock on that same Sunday.
So in a half hour, all 7 of them fall, right?
That's right. Because if we're gonna get this thing done, we're gonna get it done quick. Once we take out one of them bastards, we gotta wipe out the rest of them in 30 minutes. Okay, the professor and I get the details worked out. Alexa, you, TK, Kinsella, and the professor are gonna be on Kauai. So you meet at Luma High Point, 2 o'clock. Fill him in, Professor.
Okay. Drew has outlined the problem. Here's the solution. Now we have 2 days left for preparation. Jenny will buy a convertible, paint it, and have it ready for Drew. Alexa will outfit an office maintenance truck for Ed Parker. And I'll finish my own work on the gas gun. Every step has been calculated and checked. It is far more vital to perfect the evolution of an act of determination than the actual moment of impact, as I like to call it. Order and sequence will simply not fail us. Follow each step precisely, and you'll come through this with your ass in one piece.
And by the way, Professor, Cowboy and Jenny will rent a car and follow Chemo. Those 2 bodyguards of his have to be taken out.
Right. So now this is basically a very familiar setup, which is, okay, they have everything planned, so there has to be one thing that goes wrong, and that's what you're waiting for. So sure enough, they get everything in place, and they start to execute the plan. Cowboy and Jenny, who's Alexa's friend or whatever, they go and find the bodyguards, and they realize that the car has bulletproof windows, which they weren't aware of. But because now they're not allowed to contact each other, Drew doesn't get that message. So that's the only thing they haven't accounted for in their plan. Right? So the first target is they go, Ed Parker, the friendly-looking martial artist, goes and finds Mr. Lee. They have a martial arts fight, and he throws Mr. Lee out a window. And then when one of his henchmen goes to pull a sword on him, he shoots him, which is the Indiana Jones move, which everybody says, oh, Indiana Jones ripped it off from this. There is no evidence that happened. It just happened to be the same type of thing a couple of years earlier. It's not like Spielberg was ripping off Andy Sidaris, I don't think. So Mr. Lee is jettisoned out a window, dead. Cowboy and Alexa go and find Butterfly. He's giving out drugs to his little clan of cultists, and they come over posing as people who work for a surf competition, and they start giving out free shirts. And sure enough, they give a bullseye shirt to Butterfly. Who's like, mine has a bullseye. And Cowboy's like, yeah, it does. Hey, why don't I get some pictures of you surfing? Why don't you go out there and surf? So Jenny takes the girls away, or his people away, and he goes out and surfs, and Cowboy shoots him. But at that point, a belly dancer who works in the club for the hitman shows up and apparently is either working, well, we find out later she's a double agent. She shoots Cowboy right after he shoots Butterfly and then escapes. So Cowboy gets shot, and then, sorry, I'm reading through my notes. Okay, here we go. So then Alexa goes to the hermit and kind of, shakes her chest at him, and because he's into women, she gets him to kind of go to a secluded area on the island, and then he starts to rape her, but she manages to kind of get the drop on him, and then shoves an explosive down his crotch and blows him up. Now, right as this is happening, I think Mr. Lee activates like a secret signal to warn all the seven that something's going on. Now they never talk about that, but I think that's supposed to be the idea of why they have to do it in 30 minutes, because they know this signal will happen. So now all the seven, they have this little signal beeper thing that starts going off. Luckily, it doesn't really matter, because once it's going off and they notice, they're about to be dead anyway. So right after the hermit gets his crotch exploded, we see Drew on the highway with the Kahuna's car, where he's got the blow-up doll and he's pretending to fondle it to distract the Kahuna's guards because they somehow think it's a real woman. I'm not really clear why this was necessary. I have a feeling Andy Sidaris just thought blow-up dolls were funny because they show up in a lot of his movies. So I think this was his version of ha-ha funny. Whatever it is, he goes to shoot the Kahuna and then hits the windows, and of course the windows are bulletproof. So the Kahuna escapes and gets into a little plane, and Drew follows him in another little plane by pretending that his wife has a medical emergency instead of just stealing a plane. I guess he can't fly it because the person flies him, but did they not notice he doesn't have a woman with him? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Whatever, this movie's not concerned. So they're chasing each other in planes. Meanwhile, TK decides that the best way to blow up Mr. Chin on the golf course is to hang glide over him and drop a bomb into the little cabin that he's in, which is exactly what he does, and a bomb goes off on a golf course, which is fantastic. The comedian tells Chemo that he's interested in selling his comedy club, so could he come over and watch his comedy act and then sponsor him in LA, which seems very convoluted. But Chemo shows up. The comedian does his racist act, then manages to shoot Chemo, but Chemo's bodyguard, who is the bad guy from the first Karate Kid movie, the sensei sweep the leg guy, Martin Kove, manages to shoot comedian and kill him. So Chemo is dead, but so is the comedian, and then Martin Kove also gets killed. So far, everything is kind of going to plan. The professor, who we've watched assemble the rifle the whole movie, then fires a missile according to a time because he's mapped out when McDowell goes, gets breakfast, and gets back to his car, and he always does it in the exact same amount of time. So as soon as he gets back to the car, a little tiny missile flies and blows a hole in his chest and kills him. So then Drew catches up to the Kahuna after they land, but Kahuna manages to escape and get on a boat and starts to go away, at which point Alexa shows up in the helicopter after she bailed after blowing up the hermit, picks up Drew, they fly over the boat, and Drew shoots the Kahuna dead. Except that after they leave, we realize that the Kahuna was using a body double. Alexa and Drew land on a beach. The professor just happens to be there with a rifle, and they take the rifle and fire another mini missile, which then kills the kahuna. And the Professor Pervo says, well, how did you know it was a decoy? And we get this little swan song of an ending dialogue.
Goodbye. You know, pal, you never cease to amaze me. How'd you know the first guy on that boat wasn't the kahuna?
You see, the one thing I knew about the kahuna was everything he did was left-handed. Everything. The first dude on that boat was a righty.
I'll tell you what we're gonna do. Let's get our helmets polished and get out of this business.
Aces, man.
And that's the end of our film. Now, the thing is, as he's saying the thing about him being a lefty, they'd show clips of the kahuna constantly doing things with his left hand. So they were showing that he was always using his left hand. I just never noticed it because I didn't think to pay attention. But they do play clips of multiple scenes that were in the movie earlier where he's like lighting a cigarette with his left hand, doing stuff with his left hand. So they do actually lay that out if you're paying attention. And when I rewound it, when the guy goes to shoot at him, he's using his right hand. So it is properly laid out. So again, little clever things in movies like this, but the movie, look, it's a trashy B movie, but it flows so wonderfully. And with the villains and the team and all the shit that goes on, I had a blast. It was just one of the more fun things. It's probably Hard Ticket to Hawaii is better because the two women seem to be having fun. I like those two women as the secret agents. That's why I like those movies. But as a single Sedaris film, this might be his best one, beginning to end as a single film, because it accomplishes exactly what it's trying to be, which is a low-end James Bond film with all the Bond villains in one movie that then the team executes in one shot. And it is really fun. So this is on YouTube in its entirety in pretty good quality. It's at like 720, like in low-end HD. So it's good. And it's perfectly watchable. So I would say if you like this kind of thing... Oh, and then we find out there's a very, very short epilogue where Cowboy survived because the bullet hit his little medallion that they were talking about.
Ah, yes.
And then at the very beginning of the movie, the belly dancer who shot him, the chemo guy used her to identify targets by her putting a yellow lei over their heads, and then they knew who to kill. And so they throw a yellow lei at her, and then they shoot her dead. And that's the end of the movie. So that's the actual kind of end of the movie, which is nice. They wrap that up, and then the movie ends. So fun little movie. It's actually there's nudity too. You're going to see plenty of boobs. So that's a Sedaris thing too. So there will be nudity aplenty. In fact, one of the actresses is so awful. I told my wife to come in and she watched it and her mouth dropped. This woman is I almost clipped it. Her acting is so bad, but go discover that for yourself because it's worth seeing. Oh God, she's awful, awful. But again, 1979. You can watch it for free on YouTube. It's a little over an hour and a half, and it's a fucking blast. It's just a fun movie. One of these, assemble the team, Ocean's 11 style, execute the plan, and it's just a riot. The only bad thing is the comedian dies, because even though his comedy was racist, I kind of liked the actor, so it was too bad he died, but everybody else makes it. So he got killed for his racism, and that's how it should be. Outside of that, this is just a lightweight film with nothing heavy in it. Boobs, bullets, bombs, the kind of template he would perfect later. But it's a blast. It's a great little movie. So, and that's it. That's all I got. So Necronomicon is good if you like that type of thing. 7 is good if you're into lightweight action with some boobs in there. And, Quantum Mania, apparently, if you want weird stuff, is good. So I think we had no bad reviews. Everything was good again.
Ahsoka was good, and New Witcher was good, and
So basically, we had another show where everything was good. There's a rarity. We didn't really.
I was surprised that everything was quite good, quite enjoyable.
Well, that's great. That's great. That's what we want. So, So we ran really long because I just wanted to play all those clips because I fucking loved hearing that guy explain stuff. I really did. I was glued to his explanations because they just. That movie breezes by. I mean, it flew by. I couldn't believe how fast it was over. So anyway, now we'll shut up because we've run long as usual. So have a wonderful weekend, whatever you watch, and we'll talk to you again next week. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow at Ozone Nightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.